Welcome, everybody, to the August 21st, 2018 Board of Commissioners meetings. Please silence your cell phones, pagers, and any electronic communication devices. Agendas are located at the back of the room if you wish to follow along or have any questions. At this point, I'll have Commissioner Deb Hadcock do the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
I pledge allegiance
Next on the agenda item is review and approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by DeSanto, seconded by Busker to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we come to the consent agenda, and I'll recognize Ms. Holly Hennis.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items: approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of August 7th, 2018. Number 6 is to schedule a public hearing at 9:15 a.m. on Tuesday, September 6th for Budget Supplement SB 18-009 for the 2018 Accumulated Building Operating Transfer Out Budget, and 1 to the Capital Projects Fund budget. Number 7 is to authorize the purchase of road salt from Nebraska Salt and Grain per the state contract number 17231 as submitted by the Highway Department. And finally, number 8 is to recognize and thank the volunteers for the month of July 2018 as submitted by Human Resources.
Is there anybody from the public that would like anything pulled from the consent agenda? Anybody from the board?
Mr. Chairman, number 8.
We have one item, item 8. Anything else? Look for a motion to approve items 5, 6, and 7.
Move to approve items 5, 6, and 7.
Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Busker. 5, 6, and 7 approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, Mr. Busker.
I really don't have anything special to say about it. I just, we skip through these things pretty fast every month, and I just want everyone to know there's over 100 names on this list of volunteers that give the time for the sheriff, search and rescue, JSC, and we really owe them great gratitude.
I second that.
That's all.
Anybody else? I totally agree, and I think the board agrees with you, Mr. Busker, and thank you for pulling that off and giving the recognition that they deserve.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to approve 8.
Moved by Busker,
Second?
seconded by DeSanto, to approve items number 8, which is the recognize and thank the volunteers of the month. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That ends our consent agenda. We're on to regular agenda items. Unfortunately, you guys are going to have to wait a little bit. We have an executive session per South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2 for litigation.
That'd be my motion to go in an executive session.
Moved by Hadcock,
Second.
seconded by Busker to go into executive session. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We go into executive session. Need a motion to come out of executive session?
Move to come out of executive session.
Second?
Moved and seconded to come out of executive session. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, We come to item number 10, is the 2017 Financial Compliance Audit and Exit Report from the State of South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit, Mr. Alan Schaefer, Audit and Change. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
How you doing, Al?
Good morning. I'm Al Schaefer with the Department of Legislative Audit, and here to go over our findings and recommendations on our just completed calendar year 2017 fiscal and compliance audit of Pennington County. Not a whole lot to go over. You guys should have a copy of what we call our management letter. It's on our letterhead that should have been in your packet. The letter just kind of, the first part of the letter just kind of talks about what the letter is and then our requirements to report to you in writing, different things and stuff. The part that we're going to go over is about the middle of the second page there. And we got a few items that, we had no written comments that are going to be in the actual final audit report. These are just what we call oral comments that we feel the board should be made aware of. And just to go over those with you guys. So we have a couple items that we call our deficiencies in internal control that we thought you guys should be made aware of. And the first one there was that an independent review of general journal entries is not done by someone other than the person making the entries. And it's just a good internal control practice to have somebody else look at those journal entries, because that's one of those transactions that it's kind of outside of the, there isn't a lot of eyes on that and stuff other than, and so there's somebody else looking at that, they can see if there's somebody trying to do something, hiding something that way or something. So our recommendation is somebody review those and document the review by initialing the transaction or whatever. So, and the second item there is we did have a few audit adjustments that we did to the financial statements. Mainly these were what we call reclassification type entries. It was where we either reclassified cash and cash equivalents to investments, or in the equity section column calling stuff restricted net position or unrestricted or net invested in capital assets. We had a couple adjustments for those, and mainly dealing with the bond issue that you had last year. And then the one thing that we did do that was more of a major adjustment, I guess, was in the capital projects fund. We did record a payable due to the contractors for the retained percentages that you guys do on the contracts. Every time you make a payment, you withhold some of that. Well, that is really a payable to the contractor, and so we made an adjustment to accrue that on the books for that. So, and it was a pretty healthy amount for that fund and stuff. It was like, I think, around $700,000, but that's the retained percentages on your construction projects that you had going on at the end of December. So. The other item that we had is an immaterial violation of laws, rules, regulations, grant agreements. And what this is when you have federal grants and you charge expenditures to it like you do with your healthcare trust fund, you technically should have what's called a essential service cost allocation plan. And in your guys' case, it's probably going to be something that's just real simple to do, because it's just mainly probably setting forth that the costs you're charging to the funds that have federal grants in them, that it's basically the same thing as what you're doing on the normal expenditures that get charged to the general fund or any of your other non-federal funds and stuff. It's just, that's one of those requirements of the federal grants, that they want to make sure that they only get charged their fair share of the cost too. So that's all we had for comments. Of course, when we are here to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And after we made those few adjustments, we're issuing what we call an unmodified opinion that basically says the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the county as of December 31st and for the year therein ended. Do you guys have any questions on anything?
The board? I don't really have any, Alan. I think the only comment that I would make was I see these external audits as a good process that help not only the auditor's office, because it keeps everybody in check and you learn some things that may not be going, or things change. I think it's a helpful thing, and I don't know if Cindy feels that way, but she does. So I think only positive comes out of that. So I appreciate the work on it, Alan.
And we want to thank Cindy and the auditor's office and the treasurer's office and any other offices that we work with are always real good to help us when we have questions, and we get the information from them real timely and stuff. So that helps with the audit go smoothly too. So we appreciate that too. So.
Okay.
Chairman.
And Mrs. Hackett.
I agree with Lloyd. It's a good checks and balances for our county, and we appreciate you. You've done this a long time now, so anything that you see, plus then you know kind of what's on paper and how we're doing things. 'Cause you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
So we appreciate those checks and balances that you give us, Alan, every year. So thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's all I've got, unless you guys have some questions. And
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
The journal entries that you want to double check, are those in each department or just in the audit department?
the auditor's office is the one that does the entries. It might be because maybe a department sees that an expense got charged to the wrong code or something like that. They may come from the other offices, but the actual auditor's office is the one that physically does the entry in the general ledger. And so somebody that's where we say that in the auditor's office, somebody look at that stuff, so.
So Cindy, I'm assuming that you got that handled already? Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we need a motion to authorize the chairman's signature on the audit letter for the Department of Legislative Audit.
Be my motion?
Moved by Hadcock,
Second?
seconded by DeSanto. Any discussion from public? Commission? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Alan.
We appreciate being able to do this service for you guys too, so, thanks.
Item number 11, items from Health and Human Services. Item A is board approval to submit a proposal to the Leanna M. and Harry B. Hemsley Charitable Trust. And this comes to us from Mr. Busker, but I'll recognize Barry for the beginning to explain what's going on with this.
Good morning, Barry Tice, the Director of Pennington County Health and Human Services. As we touched on a couple of weeks ago, we're in the process with the Helmsley Foundation on being invited to submit a proposal to study mental health services across western South Dakota, visiting with individuals from the Human Services Center. And the big thing with this, as I highlighted in the memo at the bottom where it talks about the information provided through the result of this study would outline concrete ideas and help stakeholders, such as Pennington County, develop a plan of action for western South Dakota. And so I wanted to keep my comments brief up here because there is a lot of support coming from the Alliance, which I referenced within this memo and explaining how we got to this point and the county's involvement and my involvement with it. And so I would field any questions. I would rather turn it over to others who might have additional comments as well.
Okay, Barry. What I'd like to do with this, folks, is I think we got a lot of people that would like to speak. And from the subject, there was a lot of misinformation that was spread out on social media and so forth from all this, but I think there was some good hard work with this. But how I'd like to run this, as I turn over to Mr. Busker, because he requested to have it put back on, have each commissioner give any discussion, any questions they'd have to have. Then what I'd like to do is have a motion put on the floor. Once that motion's on the floor, then I'll take public comment, so that way you know what you're talking and discussing about. I think we need a little guidance for that route, so that's how I'd like to proceed with this item, if nobody has any problems with that. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Busker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted no last time around on this. And since then, I found out some new information that probably should have found out before that, but I didn't. One is, I got the assurance from several people in the Alliance that this is not a plan of action to involve Pennington County taking this on themselves. That's what I always feared, and that's why I voted no. I don't think this is a Pennington County project. It is a state of South Dakota project, and it had nothing to do with whether I'm not interested in the mental health of people in western South Dakota, as a lot of detrimental comments in the paper and 2 cents, which I hesitate to read. But it had nothing to do with that. It had something to do with who should be doing this work and who should be paying for this work. And I also got spent some time thinking about it, that perhaps this will be a benefit when we go to the state to ask for some money. We will have some concrete facts behind us that says, here's what we need and here's what we found out. And so I guess if nothing else, I raised a whole bunch of interest countywide with with the no vote. Obviously, with the people that are here today that weren't here last time, we can't be passing all these things and spending, and it's not our money, I understand, but spending money without some other input than just Barry coming down telling us, I want to do this. Oh yeah, okay, go do it. So if nothing else, generated some interest anyway. You know, I'm about done, so the bad comments in the paper don't really hurt me that much. One thing good about being on the county commission, next week everybody will forget about it and there'll be another problem. So with that, I plan on making a motion to renew the motion that we had last. I can't do that yet after speaking, but that's my intent. So anybody that follows here can speak to that, but that would be my intent.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Busker. Any other commissioner would like to speak at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
I too reflect Commissioner Buskerud's sentiments that I agree that we have a mental health problem that needs to be addressed West River. I believe I've said that 3 different times. The Rapid City Journal didn't bother reporting that at the meeting last time around. My issue lies within who's carrying the ball. And I believe that if we take the steps to submit this rather than ask, for example, one of our senators or legislators to ask for the grant through Health and Human Services on state level, that's what's going to be expected for the rest of the duration. In other words, if we take the ball, we're going to have to carry the ball across the finish line. And I'm concerned about that. That's why I voted no, because I believe that it should start at the state legislature, and that's where it should finish, at the state legislature. And we shouldn't even touch the ball, because in so many times in the past with government programs, once the ball gets rolling, everybody else is pushing us to push the ball down the road, and so that's where I stand still today, is that the state should be carrying this ball from the end zone, or from the point of impact, I guess, to the end zone. That's my feelings. So again, I'll make it very clear so that it's reported correctly. I believe that we need a mental health facility, West River, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. So that's what I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. DeSanto.
Chairman,
Mrs. Hadcock.
I still believe the purpose of the alliance was to bring the local city, county, state, and tribal private organizations together to explore the need for additional mental health in West River. So I'm in agreement with there needs to be a plan of action, and that plan of action is going to take all those entities in one to get this done. And hopefully with the state, they understand that. That's my bottom line with this, is it's well needed. And I think if we start the ball moving and we use all the entities, the city, the county, the state, in that action, that plan of action, I think you're going to get more stuff done with a team than you are individually. So I truly believe it's not just for Pennington County. This is going to be moved forward from this study to many different areas in western South Dakota, and I believe also it will help eastern South Dakota. So I think it's going to be a positive all the way around.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. Mr. Farabee, do you have any? Mr. Farabee.
I've got a procedural comment first. We voted on this once, and as I understand procedures, then this issue should have had a motion to reconsider before we did any talking. And I still think we ought to have somebody should make a motion to reconsider. One of the 3 of us had prevailed last time. the discussion shouldn't have happened until we made that motion.
Jay, could you please give us some clarification on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. One of the reasons why a motion to reconsider would not work is you adopt it every January 1st to start the year. It requires someone on the prevailing side at the actual session, at the day that the motion is typically adopted. This motion 2 weeks ago was never adopted, in case people have forgot that. But if something was adopted and somebody wants to take that matter up again, they give notice of intent to reconsider, and you go to the next meeting and you have a new vote. None of that happened. None of that is important, however, today, because this was a motion that was defeated, if you want to use that word, meaning it did not get enough votes to carry. It was not adopted. Robert's Rules of Order are really clear. There's at least 3 ways where you can bring that back up. If a motion doesn't get enough votes to be adopted, then that's called it was disposed of without being adopted. You can bring that up at the next session, not typically in the same session, but this is a new session. If a motion dies for lack of a second, you can bring that up again. If a motion is withdrawn, you can bring that up again. In those 3 examples, the whole point is nothing happened with the motion other than it just didn't get adopted. You can bring that up again. So my understanding today is Commissioner Buskerud is desiring to renew this motion because the past one failed, didn't get enough votes. He absolutely is within authority under Robert's Rules of Order to bring it up today, and you can vote on it today.
Thank you, Jay. You have a follow-up? Mr.
I
Fair?
totally disagree. We took action last meeting. It failed. Whether it's adopted or failed, the same rules prevail. One person from the prevailing party has to bring it forward, should have noticed the intent last meeting to bring it up this meeting. But I totally disagree with that interpretation. We took action last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Farabee.
Action assumes typically that you adopted something. You carried a motion. You did not do that. Motion to reconsideration at this point is too late. Doesn't even apply. Motion to rescind doesn't apply because that assumes something was adopted. Motion to amend something previously adopted is a third way, but that in its very title means you adopted something. Nothing was adopted by this body 2 weeks ago. It is very much within the authority of Roberts to bring this motion up now, today, and take a new vote on it. So we just going to have to agree to disagree.
So we extend that argument then that if something isn't adopted, I mean, ruled on favorably is the words you're trying to use. Since it wasn't ruled favorably, then you can keep bringing it up until it is ruled favorably. That's just wrong. We took action last meeting. I don't have the policy that we adopted back in January in front of me, but I don't remember the words adopted in there. Action was taken last meeting.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Can I read something directly?
Sure.
Making a motion again, and this is out of Robert's rules. Making a motion again after it has been defeated is called renewal of the motion. Suppose, for example, a motion to make a contribution of $500 to a worthy charity is defeated at one of your monthly meetings 2 weeks ago. You cannot simply make the same motion again at the same meeting. But after the meeting is over, if you feel the assembly has made a wrong decision, Commissioner Buskerud, and the motion to make the contribution should have been adopted, the solution is very simple. All you need to do is make the same motion again at your next monthly meeting. You can do this regardless of how you voted on the original motion.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
What is our policy that we adopted in January? We had a variation or deviation from Robert's rules on reconsideration. What does that say? And that should prevail.
It's not a
That should
reconsideration.
dominate the policy that we adopted first meeting in January.
I think with the information provided, it is a renewal from what the chairs, that's why I allowed it to be put back on the agenda, because I was on the reconsideration type thing, so we did the research on the renewal. If we didn't want to bring this back up, we should not have adopted it onto the agenda, plain and simple, during the beginning, but it is on the agenda, and I think it's a renewal, so we're going to move forward with this.
Can I
Mr.
make one
Busker?
more statement? Are you done, George?
Yeah, oh, yes.
I agree with Mark entirely that it's a state project and the state should be doing it. And when Commissioner Hadcock says, well, and hopefully the state will get in, that's this part that scares me. Hopefully the state will get involved. And it does scare me. But as I said, I had assurances from two people that I trust and believe in, who I don't need to maybe mention who they are, but that this county is not going to take this program on itself and do it itself. It's going to be a joint, hopefully, with at least with the state, and if we're going to do it for Western South Dakota, every other county out here can put some money in it too, including the tribes. But I think we're a ways away from that, and I guess I have been convinced myself that we need an original assessment of what's going on out here to take to the state. If there's 10 people in need, then we got a problem. If there's 1,000 people, then we probably really have a problem and we need something out here. So I think we need that assessment first to take to the state and convince our legislators. But otherwise, Mark, I agree with you 100%. So I have slaved over this decision, believe me.
I talked to,
Just a second, George. I've let everybody talk once. I let you talk twice, him twice, and I haven't had my chance to speak
I
yet.
didn't talk on the issue. I talked on the procedure.
As I said, I'm next.
Go
I'll
ahead.
I'll call on you next. I did your follow-up. Mike, folks, on this item, then I'll go back to, if commissioners want to speak a second time or a third time, but I'll go back to you. My comment on this is that, I think our state's attorney's done a good job of checking out how to bring this back as a renewal, and we've done that. The first meeting, I'll have to admit, I was a little upset with how the vote came out, and I think a lot of people in the public were upset with how it turned out. And there was a lot of social media that had misconceptions of what actually did happen. I've got great respect in my commissioners and what they did that day and what they were trying to express wasn't anything against the mental health bill, but there were legitimate concerns. And so it was defeated. And that was a good thing because it brought all you guys here today. As Mr. Busker said, if that would have just flew through 2 weeks ago, nobody would know what happened, not all that much information. This got your attention, this got your support, and started getting people's blood pressure up again to bring them out to express how passionate they are about this and the needs to it. And it's going to show to our legislators and the governor of the need of this. And that's a good thing. I couldn't see that 2 weeks ago, but after about a couple days, I see that. So I think that's where we're headed with this. That's my comment. Next, I'll go. George, you wanted to speak
I
again?
want to talk on the issue that about a year, this time last year, we passed a resolution unanimously to go to the legislature. A fellow, the name is Mr. Scoville, brought it before us, and and I think he said he went to the city and got unanimous approval of the resolution. So it's in the legislature's hands, and this piece of paper says the study will take 9 to 12 months. Human nature being what it is, the legislatures will say, well, we can put this on back burner for another session coming up because Pennington County is doing a study. I think everybody understands the legislature's not going to do something unless they're pushed. Let's not give them another excuse to wait another year. I don't think anybody in his right mind doesn't believe that we need a physical facility geographically someplace in western South Dakota. That's not the issue. You want to go out and study, find out what's out there. That assumes that it's static. It's not static. People come and go. People get well. People get sick. It's not going to be a static number. But my main issue is let's not give the legislature one more session. Give them one more session to say, well, we'll wait and see what the study shows. And I've got a real problem with this is free. Nothing's free. Free is usually really expensive. What do we need another study for? We know there's a problem out there. It's a state problem, not a county problem. We're part of the state. Let the state take on the role that they're supposed to take on. Let's not give them another year. Let's not give them another year. Let's keep the heat on them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commission?
People ain't gonna get it.
I'd look for a motion. We want to take public comment before we make motion?
I'll make a motion to submit the proposal to the Leona M. and Harry B. Helmsby Charitable Trust and to affix the chair's signature to the proposal when complete.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Now I'm going to take comments from the public. Now you know what the motion is on the floor at this point in time. It could change after the discussion, but please limit your comment to probably about 2 minutes. I'll recognize Mr. Carl Jaggers.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I'm Carl Jaggers. I'm the police chief at the Rapid City Police Department, and I share your optimism that this slight conflict that we had at the meeting a couple of weeks ago is actually healthy for our community. That we have the opportunity to spend a little time here today just to discuss the importance of mental health. One thing that I just want to point out that I think that, well, there's two things that I just want to share real quickly here. First one is that we as a community are being inefficient and ineffective to provide adequate mental health services to those that are in crisis. And we're using the wrong tools. We're primarily utilizing the criminal justice system as our primary tool, and that is fundamentally flawed and lacks a humanitarian approach, really. So we have great partners at Behavior Management, Regional Hospital, the detox program here that work very hard to do the best that they can with the tools that they have. But the second point that I just wanted to make is that you did provide clarity to what the problem is. And you can't solve a problem until you identify the problem. And what the problem is that there is not political will from any political body, to take responsibility to help those that are most vulnerable in our community. And that's just a really sad state of affairs, I would say. I think that mental health services are being paid for at the end of the day by 4 different general taxing bodies. It's local, county, state, and then oftentimes supplemented by federal tax dollars. And then, of course, our good friends at Regional Healthcare do a lot of charitable care in that role too, which costs everybody at the end of the day. So the easy response, the historic response that we've done is each of those political bodies, rather than somebody taking hold of responsibility and leading, each of them slightly increases their budgets for jails, detox, et cetera. And, but if 4 different bodies do that, the public doesn't really see how expensive that is, but it's really 4 different taxing bodies that are coming together. So really, I just want to commend Mr. Tice, what he is trying to orchestrate here, what the Alliance is trying to orchestrate is connecting those bodies so that we can have sincere negotiations amongst political leadership on how we're going to manage a collaborative approach. It's not as easy as saying the state take it or the county take it. It's going to be the state and the county and the city and the feds and the community and our hospital partners, we've got to work together. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl.
Good morning. My name's Steve Manlove. I'm a psychiatrist in Rapid City. And I first want to just tell you how much I appreciate your thoughtful approach to this issue. I know this is not easy, and there's a variety of ways of thinking about it. And I've spoken with a few of you before this meeting, and I appreciate your time there also. I want to just make a couple of kind of highlight a couple of issues. You've heard a lot already, but I want to just first talk about the kind of grassroots nature of this process. This began over a year ago. I think it was Mark Harlow who initiated a very large meeting of 30 or maybe 50, a huge number of people who are involved with mental health services in our community. And it began there, and it's kind of evolved over time into a smaller committee that's kind of been focused on this issue. But it's always been, not just one entity. It's always been the hospital, the private sector, behavioral management systems, the sheriff, the city, in different ways. And it's been a really, from my perspective, it's been one of those kind of miraculous grassroots kind of evolutions that you once in a while see in communities, and we're right in the middle of it here in Rapid City. I think that we probably foisted this decision on you folks without giving you enough preparation for it, because here we've done a lot of thinking about it, and suddenly you're asked to sort of sign the request. But I want to explain why we thought the county was a good entity to do, the county commission was a good entity to do that, and that is because I think it's the right size. It represents the right group of people in our community. I think the state has to be involved. There's no question about it. The city needs to be involved. I need to be involved personally. My group needs to be involved. My business, other nonprofits need to be involved. But the county is kind of the right size to sort of say, yeah, we kind of agree that this needs to be looked at, and we came to this point where we needed to really have some data so we could make rational decisions, think about it rationally moving forward, have you folks involved with the discussion, have the state involved with the discussion, the city. So maybe that wasn't right, but we think that the county commission is the right group to okay this and to say, yeah, this is worth getting some data about, worth kind of defining more clearly, so that then we can take it to the state. Frankly, if we take it to the state without that, I don't see them being very interested. I think if we take it to the state with the county, with the city, with us as a community, this big grassroots process, then I think the state maybe listens. Without that, I think the state says they kind of blow us off in a summer study, which I think might be happening a little bit right now. So I just encourage you to just be part of this process. We don't want you to pay for it. That's not the goal. We want you to be part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manlove.
Good morning. My name is Katie Urban. I'm coming to you as a parent this morning, and I prepared my statement, so
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I believe there is a mental health crisis in our community, and the commission allowing the mental health grant application to move forward would be a great step in addressing it. Any decision to expand mental health services in western South Dakota will likely need to be backed by hard data that could have been or could be collected through this study. I want to quickly tell you why I am passionate about increasing the number of mental health resources in our community. First, I consider myself to be an exceptionally resourceful person, but in the past year, I have been unable to harness the mental health resources that my child needs. Sorry.
Okay, take your time.
Last fall, my daughter had a suicide attempt, followed by a series of hospitalizations. After 4 hospital stays, her psychiatrist recommended inpatient treatment. It was the best way to keep her safe. The quick stints at Regional West and outpatient counseling were not helping, and my inpatient options at the time included a small center in Spearfish that had a 3-month wait, or facilities in the eastern part of the state. When looking into whether it even made sense to send her to a long-term treatment facility, I read one thing over and over, and that said that it was very important for families to be involved in their treatment for successful rehabilitation. I have other children, a career, and an array of other obligations, and I didn't know how I could be actively involved in her treatment if she was on the other side of the state. Ultimately, we felt we had no choice but to place her in treatment, and we decided to send her to a treatment center in Colorado. We had family there and thought it was the best option. I can't remember anything more painful than leaving my 13-year-old in an unfamiliar place. We were in the crisis of our lives, and it was exasperated by the fact that we had to leave our home. The issues don't stop at a lack of long-term care options through mental health professionals in our community have long wait times, particularly if they specialize in a specific type of therapy or come highly recommended. My daughter's been on a wait list for a specific therapist since February. I advocated for my daughter. I sought help. I did what everyone told me to do, and what I found is that there is simply not enough resources in our community. This is my home. I want to stay here, and I want to live in a place that invests in their community, whether that is in our infrastructure, our schools, or our most vulnerable members of our society. I want to leave you with one last note. In my professional life, I am the community relations manager for the school district. Mass communications is my responsibility. 6 times in the last year, I have had to make that call to our school community. 6 kids. 6 kids in the Rapid City area schools have died by suicide. And additionally, there have been hundreds of kids that we've documented who have attempted or have threatened to hurt themselves. If that doesn't tell you that we as a community need to do something now, I don't know what will. I apologize for being so weepy. Thank you.
Thank you for your courage
Okay.
today, for speaking.
Thank you, Katie. We appreciate your courage for coming here today.
I hate to follow Katie up, that's hard to do. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak today. My name is Cher Daniel, and I'm also an employee of Rapid City Area Schools, but I am also coming to you as a parent on a personal level. As the parent of a child with recent mental wellness issues, including a suicide attempt, one cannot imagine the fear, anxiety, sadness, and frustration that puts on a family. This is only compounded by the lack of resources and quality care we are able to access here in our community. I know firsthand what it is like to have a medical expert recommend your child be admitted to the hospital for acute mental well-being and be told there is no bed. As parents, we were told there was no space here at Regional West, but we could choose to have our child transported in a police car to Sioux Falls or Yankton for care. This is unacceptable. While I appreciate the Commission's commitment to fiscal and budgetary responsibilities, as I believe that was one of the reasons for voting no, was to avoid recommendations that may cost money, according to Mr., say your name for me, Buzzgrood?
Buzzgrood.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments today and your reconsidering information, because I believe you felt that the taxpayers of Pennington County should not be paying to heal everyone in western South Dakota. I agree, but I think we should have the option, if we can pay, to receive services in our own backyard. While I appreciate your attempt to put burden on the state as well, I believe both reasons are short-sighted. As our county elected officials, you and the state have the obligation to serve those who live here. You are not allowed the luxury of burying your head in the sand about problems that plague our community. That is what you were elected for. As your opening statement on your website reads, whether enacting ordinances and resolutions or approving budgets and expenditures, this board has the responsibility to provide for the safety and welfare of all Pennington County residents. Thank you for your time, and I hope, as it has the opportunity to present itself to serve us with this survey, will be passed. My hope is families like mine can receive the support and help they need here in their own community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. We're looking for Al.
Well, I'm getting old. And I'm very, very ugly, so. I want each of you to know.
Al, you just need to identify yourself for the,
What?
you need to identify yourself for the
Oh, Al
record.
Scoville, attorney-at-law, member of this group that's here today and pretty much full force. I want each of you to know that without your help on our request for you to support a resolution that was submitted to the legislature and passed both houses with great plurality, we wouldn't be this far in our quest to hold the state's feet to the fire. On June 28th, my paralegal and I, Tina Wildberger, who's the brightest of the bright, went to appear before a summer study committee of the legislature on the mental health issue. Without your endorsement of that resolution, we would never have, and the city council, unanimous, both of you, we never would have had this summer study. That's the foundation upon which this legislature responded to that resolution that the West River is not chopped liver. We need help from the state. And you are so right when you say that this is a state obligation. But now let me give you the tenor and ilk of that committee meeting, which lasted a full day. I was the only representative there from West River. The only one. And I was treated like an enemy. This is not going to be a pleasant experience with the legislature. If this summer study committee is any indication at all of how the legislature feels. I felt sorry for the committee members of this summer study of the legislature on mental health issues, because all that the Department of Social Services and the Department of Health, which were there in attendance, all they got was the biggest whitewash I have ever sat through in a legislative summer committee study. This is not going to be easy. Not one fact was presented by the chair. Not one fact outlining why Pennington County needs help from the state. Do you realize that in 2017, we had 78 suicides here in this community? The state health department figures revealed that Pennington County had 205 suicides in 17. Bad news. Wrong.
This is going to be a fight to end all fights to get any juice out of the state. This was a very carefully organized presentation by the chair, and it was a whitewash. So it was up to me to present some reality facts when it was my turn. I was told I had 10 minutes. I traveled 300 miles, spent a whole day, and I got 10 minutes before that committee. Wow. How generous. How responsive to our need. Now, to be fair, I got to tell you that I did get a few more minutes, but that's all from the chair. The chair was rude, crude, and destructive in its handling of this hearing. I don't know where she got her authority or marching orders, but she was one piece of work.
Al, I just want to reel you in a little bit about I appreciate your comments.
We have a battle before us that isn't going to be easy. We need this data so we can do battle with the state. Without this data, not good. And I want to thank you for this proceeding and your votes. Because Dr. Manilow told me one time, if it's the right thing to do, let's do it. And you've done it. So thank you so much. This isn't going to be easy. Lloyd, we're going to need you as the chair here in the future, okay? All right. We got to get rid of these buses that leave the sheriff's office every week. 2 buses. And then the mentally ill people are shackled to the floor to go to Yankton for treatment. And they come back with a bucket load of pills and no follow-up. Social services is guilty, in my humble opinion, of malfeasance and misfeasance. We have to be strong, we have to be smart, and we have to be absolutely dedicated and passionate about this issue before the legislature if we're to get anywhere with them.
Thank you, Al. I think you have the drive. I appreciate all you do, Al. Sir.
Good morning. I'm Mark Harlow. I'm a volunteer with Cornerstone. I can't match the eloquence of Chief Jaggeris or Dr. Manlove. They've outlined the issues very clearly. I cannot match the courage or the poignancy of the mothers who spoke, so I won't try. What I would like to do simply is to ask everyone in the audience who's here to support this measure to stand so you can understand the depth of our resolve. Thank you. The study is about finding solutions, not defining problems, and we respectfully ask for your support in going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have we have a couple of people, okay?
Good morning, Commission members and guests. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you here today. My name is Greg Bertrand, and I am an alcoholic and had drug problems for years. It's amazing what alcohol and drugs can do to people. I was born and raised in Watertown, South Dakota, and I eventually received a law degree from the University of South Dakota in 1975. Historically, I began drinking at age 11, which continued on and off until I was age 46. I drank primarily for confidence and a feeling of ease and comfort. At first and for many years, alcohol worked for me, but then it stopped working for me. And then I was in trouble. By 31, I was a full-blown alcoholic. For years thereafter, I attended treatment a total of 5 times. Frankly, the first 4 treatment centers I went to didn't work because I didn't work it. I went back home to my old faces and places, and before you know it, I was drunk again. Then I had trouble with the law and ended up back in treatment for the 5th time. Fortunately for me, as I look back now, the judge handling my case knew I needed a long-term continuum of care to support the tools that folks like me acquire in treatment, and finally I really began to focus on recovery. After my treatment in Yankton, I spent a long time in recovery centers and attended 90 meetings in 90 days. I was able to secure a job, find a recovery sponsor, and continue to attend recovery meetings. As I slowly began to assimilate back into society, I realized that I had acquired some amount of knowledge concerning treatment, aftercare, and ultimate recovery for those like myself. In my humbling experience, I saw that Rapid City had a good outpatient treatment centers, but lacked almost any inpatient centers, as well as halfway houses, sober living houses, and related care. At the same time, Rapid City has a very strong recovery community, and there are recovery meetings in and around Rapid City area which run day and night virtually. Don't get me wrong, as the community appears to be strongly supportive of new methods of recovery. The proposed restoration center can act as a halfway house with safe beds, a crisis care center, and a detox center, and would be adjacent to a proposed jail. Furthermore, law enforcement is solidly behind a system that stops the cycle of jailing non-violent offenders with high recidivism who would be better served by treatment for their mental health issues and treatment for their substance abuse disorders than sitting idly in jail cells. The important thing is that law enforcement is strongly behind such advances as evidenced by its involvement in the Alliance and willingness to try something new, including a continuum of care, and Sheriff Tome and Chief Jegris are to be commended for their tireless efforts in this regard. I'm almost done. I am a member of the Alliance. I'm here to talk about drugs and alcohol. It's part of the Alliance's mission. I know a lot of attention goes to mental health, and that's right, it should. But drugs and alcohol are still a huge problem, and they're invading our young people like you can't believe. I've learned that I need to give recovery away to others in order to keep it myself. Most importantly, my experience at halfway houses and the long-term continuum of care was my salvation, and can be for many others who suffer from substance abuse. I now have 22 years of sobriety. I sincerely hope you will support the this important grant application. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks,
I just wanted to mention, I want to thank everybody for their personal stories. I mean, I know I said 2 minutes at the beginning, but I've been very lenient because some of these stories are very personal, and I think we need to hear those. But I just want to remind everybody, motion on the floor is for approval, just as a reminder. I think we have a young lady.
Hi, I'm Dr. Carrie Scoville, and I've been working in this city for 20 years. I have Scoville Psychological. I worked for Regional West for 20 years. I also work for Stanford Center for Disabilities. So I've treated mentally ill people for 20 years in this town. And I do think that we are at a mental health crisis. I've seen a lot of homeless people over the years. I've seen people from the reservation get shipped here and not get appropriate help. I've seen people having problems in detox, having a severe meth problem. Now I'm seeing a lot of heroin. I had a 16-year-old client that I tried to help. She started with edibles, you know. She definitely had suicidal ideation, cutting herself and repeatedly. Got her into Regional West, got her some help there. Then she got out, she ran away. So she had a brush with law enforcement. And her parents were like, you have to help me, you have to help me. Went back to Regional West to try to get her back in. They're full. They're doing the best they can to manage the amount of people we have. Trying hard to help this family, doing what I can as a clinical psychologist, and looking at Yankton now. Can we get into Yankton? They're down from 9 psychiatrists to 6 psychiatrists. There is no bed for this young lady. She is a community member. Her parents pay taxes here. She needs help. Her parents need help. And I finally got her a bed after several weeks in Montana. So we are absolutely paying for this problem. We are paying for it because some of these people end up in jail. They don't belong in jail. They need your help. They need your help desperately. They don't belong in jail. They don't belong in the juvenile jail. They have a substance abuse problem and a mental health problem. But we are paying for this through our tax monies. We are paying for this. Anyway, we need to learn how to streamline this. People are needing your help. We need to find a solution to this. We have lots of people that are dual diagnosis here. They have a problem with substance abuse and they have a problem with mental illness. And we are not able to help them because we don't have the facilities. We need a really good step-down facility after someone leaves Regional West that can help these people be productive members of Rapid City, that can help these people find jobs. We need a cafeteria plan where we help people, instruct them how to get a job, how to get some support, some job coaching to get back into society and live a sober life and be a taxpayer in Rapid City. We need help. We need a longer-term facility here. We don't need just Regional West. They do a great job, but we also need a longer-term facility. We need a step-down facility. We need a halfway house. We need a bigger halfway house. I have spent time on the alcohol and the drug court here as well. I've done that several years back, but I know what a problem we have. And I am really asking for your reconsideration because this is not just going to fall on you. This is not just going to fall in Rapid City. This is going to fall on also, we will go back to the legislature with the facts that we have. We just need the facts. We need the facts. We need to know, what are we able to do here? What kind of community can we produce here? Can we use interns from say out at the VA? Can we use some of the students we have from STSU, some medical students? Can we produce a better facility here and use the students to help? So I appreciate your time, and I'm asking you to reconsider for the community of Rapid City. Thank you so much.
I recognize Mr. Kevin Tone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. I'll try and stay within my 2 minutes. So the the state has taken a couple bites of the apple, if you will, at this. We had the mental health task force that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and the governor convened, and I sat on that as a member, as did others from out here and around the state. And that took a look at a very narrow sliver of people within the criminal justice system. Now you have the summer study going on, and frankly, I think the scope of the summer study is very narrow, and I don't think it's going to offer us all the solutions we need out west here. But at the same time, this isn't just the responsibility of the state. This issue is larger than any one of us. It's larger than the state, it's larger than the county, the city, the tribes, the federal government, the nonprofits. It's larger than any one of us. So it's going to take all of us to try and solve it. I've advocated for the last 18 months that we need a facility in western South Dakota. I've also advocated that it shouldn't be a state facility, it shouldn't be a county facility, it shouldn't be a government facility. I think it should be run by a nonprofit or somebody else, but we should all be partners in it. We should be to the table helping find solutions in how that's run. You know, the Behavioral Health Alliance was created, again, about 18 months ago, and that was Dr. Harlow, Paulette Davidson from Regional Health, Chief Jaggers, myself were the co-chairs for that group. We had several meetings, and really it was clear that we were lacking data and direction as to where we needed to go. And to Dr. Manilov's credit, he picked up the ball and ran with it and kept a subgroup of us together and kept meeting. And that's what this was born out of, is like, we didn't even know what to go ask for yet. How many beds, what type of beds, we didn't even know where to start. So we approached the Helmsley Foundation and said, we don't want another study that sits on a shelf. We want a study that shows us how to implement what we need to do and how we need to get there. So that's the goal of this. And in terms of impact with law enforcement, and the chief alluded to this, too often we use a criminal justice system for solutions. So you're already paying for today. Last year, in 2017, we spent over 13,000 hours of services in just the jail on mental health services for people that are incarcerated there. That's the equivalent of over 6 FTEs. And that doesn't include our transport time, taking people to state hospital, doesn't include the commitment papers we serve. So the impact on the county already is profound. And we need to find a better way to deliver services. You know, unfortunately, the jails have become some of the largest mental health providers in the country. And there's been a shift, and an inappropriate shift, in my opinion, looking for criminal justice solutions for mental health. Hopefully this will move us off of that. And Barry, I appreciate you bringing this forward and bringing it back again. And Commissioner Buskard, you're correct. It has helped galvanize the support and I think identify the need in our community. So appreciate the reconsideration and ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Dome. I do have a request from Mr. Henry to speak. Chuck Henry.
As you know, Lloyd and Deb, I get to the point of things. Some of you know me as, and my name is Chuck Henry. I'm an advocate specialist for people with disabilities and mental illness. I have mental illness. And I have Paul's Point that the fire department has on my phone, and I hear a lot of calls that they go to suicides, either attempted, completed, or threatening. It's a lot, maybe 1 or 2 a day. I'm here to say that state dollars are going to East River on mental illness, not West River. And like I've told Ron and that, if I need to, I'll go and sit on laps and peer to get this done. I'm in constant contact with behavioral health and peer for the state on issues and that. And I agree with people that are mental illness that they're sent to Yankton. They are shackled and put with prisoners, which is a bigger problem for people with mental illness, because it increases the different conditions in that. I have spent time in the crisis center and the behavioral health unit. It's a start. It's a kickoff to start treatment. And most of them get referred to behavior management systems, which I am a client of. And this legislature, the study, it needs to convince the legislature that we need more funds on this side of the state, not going to East River. So one thing I know, I hear and see a lot, and to me it's too late, because mental illness has been swept underneath the rug, just like with disabilities have been swept under the rug. But no longer, I'm going to let that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. Do we have anybody who has a burning desire to share?
Me.
Mr. Busker.
I see we do have a legislator. I won't embarrass him by having Mike stand up, but but he's heard all this, so I hope he goes to Pier with a little bit clearer appreciation of what we're trying to do.
Is there any final comments from the board before we go to vote?
And Mr. Chair,
Mr. Farabee.
as Dr. Harlow asked folks to get up, that we're in support of the study. And the folks that stood up, how many of you have lobbied all 21 legislators that call part of Pennington County their district? Has anybody even contacted one of the 21 legislators? The focus is wrong, folks. You can get up here and you can talk to us all day long. We don't have the jurisdiction, don't have control, don't have the authority. The legislature does. There's 21 legislators now that have part of Pennington County in their districts. You need to lobby and lobby and lobby those folks. As I said previously, this memo says study 9 to 12 months. Guaranteed the legislature is going to say, yep, we can forget about it this session. Let Pennington County do the study. There's no question there's a problem. Do we need to narrow the problem down to exactitude before we do something? Anybody in his right mind realize the geography of Yankton, how far it is from here? There should have been a facility out here geographically. The logistics are horrible. Obviously horrible. Let's get the legislature, the 21 of them, lobby them, you folks lobby them to get a facility started in West River. Enough studies, we know there's a problem. It's time for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farabee. Any other final comments? Ms. Hadcock.
I believe the focus is right. I don't think the focus is wrong. We can keep pushing it off to the state, but I think what we're trying to tell you, at least the people here today, that we need something in western South Dakota, and this study is about western South Dakota. You can keep including the state in on this, but we're trying to say, and I'm listening to the sheriff and the people, that the focus for this study is in western South Dakota. It's not for just the state. And the focus is on, we're putting people in jails, like the sheriff and the police chief has said, that have mental illness. So if we just push it off to the state and we say Pennington County doesn't have a problem and that this data is not going to help us to save the taxpayers' money and to help the mental challenges of these people, I think we're misconstruing what we're trying to do this study for. It's not only to pass it off to the state, it's also for what we're already doing in Pennington County and how we can do it better, and how we do it better by this data is how do we help those people with mental challenges. So if we just say it's the state's issue and we say they need to pay for it, I think they do, and I'm not disagreeing, but I also think we're already paying for it if we don't do the data. And we don't see where that data needs to focus, because any data shows you the bottom line. And the bottom line is, how can the sheriff, or how can even behavior management or anybody that's in this field, whether you're a therapist or not, how do we help them move to the next step? Instead of costing us or putting people in jail, we could do a better solution. That's why they came up with the solution of crisis care, if I'm right. There was a better solution, because it was already costing us to throw them in jail, but if we could actually get them in crisis before and kind of see where these people need to go and put them where they directly need to go instead of just throw them in jail. Sometimes they don't need to be in jail. They just need someone to listen. They just need someone that, I'm having problems right now. I'm on meth. I need somewhere to go. Where do I go? It's direction. So we're already costing us money. We can say it's a state issue, but it's our issue too. And if we can save us money, that's the bottom line. And get the data and get the direction where Pennington County can go. And for 118,000 for, the taxpayers of Pennington County aren't paying for, the bottom line, you're already paying for it. So how do we do it better for these people with mental challenges? That's the bottom line.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment.
Mr. Busker.
Deb, I think you should be quiet because you're just about ready to pull defeat out of the jaws of victory.
You know I love you, Busker.
Okay.
Thank you
Folks,
for your consideration.
First of all, before we go to vote, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you who shared something very personal. It takes a lot to come up into an environment like this and share your personal stories and put your laundry out there and ask for help, because that's what you know, is you're asking for some help. And I just want to show my gratitude for the courage that you showed for doing that today. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think we need to go to a roll call vote. Motion on the floor is for approval.
Buskerud,
Aye.
DeSanto,
Nope.
Farabee,
No.
Hadcock,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we come to, we're running quite a bit behind, folks, and I'm sure this commission's going to want to take a break somewhere along the line, probably before we get to Board of Adjustments. So I think we're going to, you want to wait to go get through this until we get to Board Adjustments?
Yes, sir.
We should get through Highway and everybody else. Okay, so that would bring us to item number 12 from the Highway Department, a resolution to delete the street number F2994-123 from the National Bridge Inventory. Mark Schock.
Good morning, Mark Schock, Pennington County Highway. Structure number 52994-123, or the bridge that was located 7.3 miles east and 5.8 miles north of Creighton, South Dakota, has been replaced with 2 culverts. These culverts do no longer meet the National Bridge Inventory System criteria. All structures that are listed on the National Bridge Inventory System are required to be inspected during construction or after completion of construction and on a 2-year interval thereafter.
So Mark, you're looking for,
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution to delete 52-994-123 from the National Bridge Inventory System and authorize the chairman to sign the resolution.
moved by Buskirk, second by DeSanto. When you cut you off, we're going good. Second by DeSanto. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we come from items from Human Resources. I recognize John.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Morrill, HR Director for Pennington County. The first piece that I have here is actually from the HR department, and it's in conjunction with partnerships from all the department heads, a number of stakeholders across the county. We took it upon ourselves to review the employee handbook for the county. The last time it was updated was 2013, with hard copies printed in 2014. We started that review in January and just completed it this month. Not that there's a tremendous amount of change. There's some wording changes and some updates. There's a few new policies that were added as well. But it's basically to make sure that it complied with current law, current proposals, and the policies actually applied to our current group of employees. There were a couple of policies that had been approved in the past also that had not been included in the handbook. They had been approved after the last printing. So we've added those to the handbook as well. And then our intentions are to post this on our intranet and then to also print a small number of hard copies for distribution throughout the county. The printing price on the hard copies has raised a bit from the last cycle. It was about $5.75 a copy on the last cycle, and they printed 50 copies. This time it's actually about $6.75, so just a bit over $1 more per hard copy to print out 50 of those. So just, again, about $350 to print those hard copies, and then with the intent of posting it on our internet. The internet piece, just as a point of reference, I guess, we want to have it posted there because it's easier to update. It's also more accessible for all of our employees. And I think there's benefit to that. And then for any minor changes we may make in the near future or in the future couple of years, we could actually update the online version and make sure that people understood and were aware that those changes had been made. The changes that we had in the past several years were things that were sent out in memos to the departments, and there were extra pieces of paper that had been slipped into the hard copies, and a number of those weren't well known to the common group of employees, if you will. So our intent here is to streamline that and make it more available for our folks as they have a need to review that. What I'm looking for today with regard to the handbook is the motion at the bottom of the memo that I included. It would be this: I move to approve the updated Pennington County Employee Handbook as presented. And again, I'll stand for any questions that you may have about the process or about the handbook updates.
Thanks, John. Is there any questions from the board? John, I kind of reviewed it and we talked about it through the compensation committee. I think you had some come through there and some other ones.
Yes, sir.
And so I think the committees worked hard in revising this. You took a lot of input from the department heads and from other people. So I think you guys all did a very good job.
Thank you.
So that'd be my motion is to approve the new written handbook.
The updated handbook as presented.
Yep.
I'll second. Is there any further discussion?
Substitute motion to continue,
Mr. Button.
to continue this till next meeting, and so you get a chance to read the handbook. It's, I
I'll
don't know
second that.
Okay.
how many pages it is, but it's
Substitute
too much
motion,
weekend reading for me.
Motion made by Fairby, seconded by Busker to continue this to the next meeting to give the commissioners a chance to read through it a little bit more. Any discussion on that? Any discussion from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor of the continuous motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That one's continued.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next, the item from the trust board.
The next item is from the Pennington County Employee Health Trust. We reviewed the bylaws and actually made some updates to this document as well. Changing the documentation, actually, we built in the inclusion of a retiree member because we do have retiree benefits, but didn't have representation on the board. So we updated this bylaws document to include the addition of a retiree member under the same 2-year terms with a maximum of 2 2-year terms. So they would be just as any of the other normal members that are part of the board. And we also updated the document to limit the representation by any single department to members on the board, so that we don't have any single area of the county that would be more heavily represented and thus weigh it in an unfair manner towards any certain group of the county departments. So the motion that I had at the bottom, actually, I would have to revise. I forgot that actually it would need to include the permission for the chair to actually sign the document once it has been approved. And on the final page of the document, actually, it shows that it would require my signature as well as the chair of the commission. So the motion then would instead, I move to approve the updated Pennington County Employee Healthcare Trust bylaws that presented and give permission to the chair to sign such document.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Busker.
I believe, and Holly, if she's around, may want to check, but I think a long time ago, we made a motion that anytime we make a motion to approve a contract or something, it includes the chair's signature, so we don't have to keep saying that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I think that's true.
But that would be my motion.
And there she is. The boss is back there. She can tell me if I'm right.
Did you miss out on that conversation?
Don't we have a motion somewhere that if we approve a contract or a resolution, that automatically includes the chairman's signature on that?
Yes,
So we don't have to keep saying that over and over and over.
Chair and vice chair.
Thank you.
There you go.
I
Okay,
make a motion to approve the updated Pennington County Employee Health Care Trust bylaws as presented.
Second.
moved by DeSanto and seconded by Agag to approve the County Healthcare Trust Board bylaws as presented. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Commissioners.
This brings us to items from planning and zoning, and folks, I know you've been waiting, but I can see a break coming for the commission so we can be fresh to get ready for you guys.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to take a break, and we assume till like 11 o'clock?
Yep.
Till 11 o'clock. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I think we'll come out of break. For everybody in the audience today, I think what we're going to need to do is we have at 11 o'clock, we have a bunch of people here because we're supposed to open up for bid, sealed bids for the Pennington County Jail Expansion Remodel Project, but I'm going to introduce Ms. Holly Hennies first because she has some corrections she wants to note.
Commissioners, it was just brought to my attention that we had a mistake on the agenda in considering the consent calendar. I just would like it corrected in the minutes that hearing will be on Tuesday, September 4th is when our next meeting is, not the 6th.
September 4th
Or 4th,
for our
Tuesday,
next meeting.
September 4th. So just so we can note that correction, we'll get it right in the minutes.
Okay, and
That's all.
everybody's okay with that,
Thank you.
of course. Thank you. And next, I'd like to, with 11 o'clock, introduce Mr. Mike Cool to do these sealed bids, please. Then we'll move on to our Board of Adjustments after that.
Good morning, Mike Cool, Pennington County Buildings and Grounds. And this is Cindy Chapman with Buildings and Grounds. And we are going to open the bids for the Pennington County Jail Expansion and Remodel Project. Okay. First bid is from Dean Kurtz Construction Company. Bid bond is attached. And I have several numbers that I'm going to be reading here. I am going to identify, going through the checklist of items that should be included within the bid. There should be a bid bond, their bid form filled out. They should have 2 addendums identified. And then I will also identify the base bid number and then the alternate numbers. So they have identified addendums 1 and 2. The base bid amount is $7,032,000. Let me back up here. I'm going to read each digit of the numbers to help make sure everybody gets those down. 7,032,000. Alternate number 1, deduct $326,000 to deduct 326,000. Alternate number 2, the deduct $109,000. Deduct 109,000. Alternate number 3, deduct of $61,000, deduct 61000. Alternate number 4, deduct 562,000, deduct 562,000. I'm not going to require read unit pricing. It won't apply to who's awarded the bids. Substitute bids, there is none for this bid. And everything appears to be in order relative to the bid.
How many you have, Mike?
3.
Okay.
Second bid is from RCS Construction. There is a bid bond. And they have identified the 2 addendums. The base bid is $7,440,000. Base bid 7440000. Alternate bids. Alternate number 1, deduct $246,000. Deduct 246,000. Alternate number 2, deduct $197,000. Deduct 197,000. Alternate number 3, deduct 58,000. Deduct 58,000. Alternate number 4, deduct $2,560,000. Deduct 256,000. There is no substitute bid. And it appears everything is filled out as required.
Chairman,
Yeah,
can I ask one question? What's substitute bid?
The substitute bid it was relative to, I think, allowing an opportunity for some other avenue to be explored that wasn't something that had been identified by the design team. Do you have the rest of this? The last bid is from Skull Construction Service Incorporated. Bid bond is attached. And they have identified 2 addendums. The base bid is $6,998,000. Base bid $6,998,000. 99800. Alternate number two, alternate number one, deduct 255,000. Deduct 255,000. Alternate number two, deduct $182,000. Deduct 182,000. Alternate number three, deduct $56,000. Deduct 56,000. Alternate number four, deduct 437,000. Deduct 437,000. There is no substitute bid. And everything appears to be filled out as required.
Just for clarification on RCS alternate 4, can you confirm that's 2.56 million, 560,000 deduct?
That is correct.
What is phase one?
Phase one is the elimination of the covered secured parking area that's adjacent to the parking structure.
Can you explain all the phases, Mike?
Sure.
please?
Alternate number one is an administrative office remodel in the main jail, the first floor of that.
Thank you.
It removes that work from the contract. Alternate number two, eliminates some of the build out in the basement of the main jail. There's a new corridor being constructed through there, and there are some additional offices. Some of those adjacent spaces to that corridor are being eliminated through that alternate. Alternate number three, eliminate water softening. That would just be a water softening system on, we're looking at both on the cold and hot sides for maintenance reasons. Alternate number four, eliminate phase one. That would be the covered secured parking adjacent to the parking structure.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
Well, I think it's a question probably in everybody's mind that's sitting up here, this discrepancy on number 4. Where is that? That's huge.
We will have to investigate that and find out. That's part of the process of what we do is to go back and look through to determine what the issues. Can we pull that one out just to verify again what's?
The rest are all relatively in line with one another as far as the alternates are concerned, but that one's just completely $2 million discrepancy. So, yeah, I'd like to know more about that.
We're just opening the bids now, and you can go through them and.
We will go through the bids with the design team and with the sheriff's office as well as with the building committee to determine a course of action in terms of how the project, what kind of recommendation we'll bring back to the board relative to this project. But that, as you can see, the alternates were structured so that we could try and find a way, ensure that we have a way to get to a project that will fit within a budget.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there any further questions for they'll take it to the building committee meeting and you guys will go through them and,
That's correct.
Okay.
We will discuss it today at the building committee meeting, and with the sheriff's office and the design team.
okay, thanks, Mike.
You bet. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one more question for you, Mike.
Mr. DeSanto.
I know it's the smallest amount, but alternate number 3, can you bring back to us what that water softener system might save us in the future of pipe replacement, that kind of stuff, build up?
Okay.
I'm assuming that's why we're wanting to do it.
It is a maintenance issue. We are exploring if there are other concerns that are raised because of utilization of water softening on both the cold and the hot water sides of the system, but it is intended to try and save the county money in the long run in terms of maintenance costs.
Probably specifically with the water heaters.
Water heaters, but also relative to any penal fixtures are very expensive fixtures and stuff. We also have issues relative to our vacuum sewer system, so and where we have buildups as well within those. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
thank you.
Next, we'll be going to items from planning and zoning. We'll go into Board of Adjustments. Look for a motion to go into a Board of Adjustments.
So moved.
It's been moved,
Second.
seconded to go into Board of Adjustments. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. PJ Conveyor.
Yeah, I'm
Convey.
gonna try and do two things at once here. PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. Item A is variance 1805 for Andrew Foley to reduce the minimum required lot size from 40 acres to 31.82 acres in the General Agriculture District. This was continued from the May 15th, 2018 meeting, and the applicant has since platted the property or got approval for a platted property through Box Elder. If you remember, this was the individual that sold off property not in the proper procedure, had to get platted. So they went back through to Box Elder, got it platted. The variance that he applied for was 31.82 acres. However, that's not the acreage size he platted through Box Elder. He platted a smaller acreage. Even though it's less than half an acre, it's still not correct. So we're asking for a continuation of this variance request to the next board, September 2nd September meeting, so that it can be re-advertised correctly.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by DeSanto, seconded by Busker to continue to the next meeting. Any discussion?
Not next meeting, sir.
September.
Didn't I say next meeting or did I say next week?
No, second meeting, September.
Second meeting in September. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ready for the next one?
Yep.
Next one is variance 1807, which is a request to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 8 feet to 0 feet on the southern property line in order to replace a deck in a suburban residential district. This has been before you a couple times. The property is 0.13 acres. The applicant is here in the audience today. The deck that was on the property, as you can see here, is being replaced. There are some overhanging boards that do appear to cross the property line onto the neighbor's property. The applicant has indicated that those are going to be cut back and that there was going to be a rain spout, a gutter put on there so that water does not go onto the neighbor's property. I was not here for the last two times that this was before you, but I am kind of familiar with what's been going on. But again, the applicant is here. I believe the neighbor is here as well. So if you have any questions for them. But my understanding is even with the gutter and the cutting back of these overhanging boards, that it would not cross the property line.
Okay. Property owner here, Mia?
Hi, my name is May Heikkinen. I'm the property owner at 710 Indian Drive. I had come before you before, and we had talked about the gutter system and the chances, should I put a roof on, that the gutter system could fail and impose water onto my neighbor's property, and then also where the gutter system would run. I tried getting a hold of the guy that was building it for me originally. He has not made contact with me, so I'll have to hire a different contractor or have friends do it, I guess, so to speak. But I have put a lot of thought into the gutter system as to where it would run. Initially, I'd indicated I could run it to my backyard away from the property, but I have since, I don't know if you can see, I was planning on having the gutter system flow this way, down this beam, this way, down the side, and onto my property. So that way it's completely directed away from him. I understand gutter systems fail. That was his primary concern, but I've had this house for 15 years. I've replaced my gutter system one time. And that gutter system that is currently on the house, I mean, I'll have to buy a new gutter system, obviously, for the new attachment, but it's fairly new. It's like 3 or 4 years old, so the likelihood of it failing is pretty slim. And like I said, I'm gonna redivert it to my front yard, probably into my flower bed right there you can see, so that way I have plants there that absorb the moisture, and my foundation does not leak. So it would take any liability away from him, as he has structural issues already.
Okay, thank you, Mia. One clarification for everybody. PJ, this was legal non-conforming is why it was with the 0 setbacks. There was a deck there prior to this, but not with the roof.
Correct.
Okay,
I think you just explained it perfectly. Yep.
okay. So that's all. I just wanted to clarify that we got a lot of people in the audience that know what's going on.
Yeah, it's
Jeb-
also for permission for the deck as well. I was hoping that you guys weren't gonna make me size it down as the main structure is already up, and I could just, oh, it really needs the side rails and stairs, even if I didn't get approval for the roof.
Okay. I am gonna, is there somebody else? I'll go to, hold on. Does any questions from the commission to Mia?
To you?
No, to the,
Oh, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Santo.
I still have a concern about the gutter failure.
Okay.
And my concern is the amount of hail that we have out in the valley. And I've seen multiple gutters failing during hailstorms. And what kind of liability is that going to put the county at if your neighbor gets damaged because water's overflowing into his yard, maybe into his basement, and then he comes to us and says, you gave permission to build this roof. My suggestion would be, and I know it looks like you've already started it, but my suggestion would have been to put a retractable awning rather than a permanent awning on it. And I would have also, at that point in time, without that roof structure, suggested that we get rid of the variance because the deck already existed. Am I correct, PJ?
Commissioner, is that correct? It did exist as
Hasn't
legal
changed the footprint.
legal non-conforming, but once that non-conforming structure is removed, they're back at 0, starting over again, which is why we're doing the variance.
So just repairing the deck wasn't an option?
No, I have lived in that house for 15 years, and it was falling apart when I moved in, and the rails were falling apart, the wood was rotting, there was no saving it, and it was just a safety hazard at that point. So, I mean, my neighbor himself came and told me one day my grill was falling off of it because the wind had taken it through the wood, and the wood wasn't strong enough to support it, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so it was just a safety hazard.
Trying to do you a favor, but.
No, it's fine. I appreciate it.
But again, that would be my concern, is that we have a large hailstorm and followed by what we normally have out in the valley. I live out in the valley, huge amounts of rain, and then your gutters are gonna be overflowing and it's gonna wind up in his yard at that.
From my understanding, he already has structural issues, so I'm not sure if that would really be a liability if his structures are already he needs to get that resealed. That's just something that he has to address. That's a totally separate issue and not any of our concern. I understand that, but even I was also wondering if I do get denied for the roof itself, would it be all right for me to leave the pillars up? And like you said, for the retractable awning, maybe something I can pull down, or even if I could put some lattice on top of it, which is permeable for shade. if
I
that would
wouldn't
possibly-
have any issue with lattice. I mean, I prefer something like
So that
that
way-
as opposed. It's not gonna hold the water if you don't have.
No, but the main concern I have is shade, honestly. I just need
Gotcha.
shade.
Yeah, that'd be the direction I would suggest you go.
I was on the same page as Mr. DeSanto about this, about the retractable awning. So, but I'm willing to listen to what some other commissioners have to say. Is there any further comments from any other commissioners? Any questions from Mia, from
I have one.
Ms. Hadcock?
Is there any gutters on the house next door?
I'm not sure about the front of his structure. I know that there's none on, as you can see on the side right there. But I honestly don't know about the front of his structure.
I tried to go there this morning, couldn't find it, and I didn't have time to do my Google thing to kind of check that out, because it looks like some of the structure issues in most people's cases are I mean, when your land is flat, you need to have if your basement's leaking, you need to have some dirt or some areas that pull that water away from your house. But I didn't see any gutters on his house or any of that dirt being pulled away from his house. But the main issue is the overhang, I understand. And I know
That will be cut back.
Yes, ma'am. And I know that you have to get to the second floor, so that's pretty much something that has to be done. I don't know that you have to have an overhang. I do believe the water is going to go onto his property, and I do believe it's gonna cause more issues because of the way I'm looking at his house. He's gonna have issues, but some of that is his, but I don't know if I'm willing to add to that issue by approving the overhang. I have, like I said, no problems like the rest of the commission with the addition of the porch, because you need to get to your second floor. But I think there's other alternatives you can do for the roofing.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Busker.
Well, obviously, the retractable roof or retractable awning is a great idea, except I got a hunch this young lady probably those things are pretty expensive, you know.
About
I would lean more toward the idea of a lattice on effect there. It'll give you some shade and be cheaper than putting plywood up or whatever you were gonna do.
Yeah. I have all the materials, but I could easily just take it back, so.
Is there rules on that? I mean,
we'd have to ask PJ.
that's why I'm.
Is PJ, are we going way off base here? Because
No, this route was expected. No, you're
Because
fine.
what I'm guessing is you're still keeping the beams. You're gonna cut them back to they're not over the property, but you're gonna put lattice over it instead. Or you could probably, they call that gazebo type.
Right.
Type thing, but you want to put lattice on it, so there really is no roof. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, this is a setback variance. The roof's kind of not really.
Okay, so that's just kind of, so the original motion on the floor was, or not motion, there was no motion on the floor, but some of the recommendations was, she's still gonna have to get, trying to find that. Last time she was here, she wasn't agreeable with one of the three conditions, and that was
The survey.
the survey.
That'd be part of condition 2, I believe.
Yeah, and,
I had requested that the property survey not be done simply because I included the original survey for my property, and the deck does measure the same size as the original deck. No, you're fine.
They have their staff reports. I'm just showing it.
My original deck still had a little bit to go on my, from my property line, I have 8 foot 3 inches, and my new deck is 7 foot 2 inches from the edge of my property.
So Chairman,
so the moving of the fence was because you had to do, you see how it's bowed out a little bit? You guys got that
That was just
correct?
from my dogs jumping on it. I'm actually gonna be taking that fence down. I just left it up until after all this got done so they could see my property line. And my deck is still within my fence line.
Okay, Ms. Hadcock.
so PJ, what was the purpose of the survey?
When things are this close, we like as-built. That way, there's no argument when it's over. It's done.
The only reason why I protest is because surveys are between $1,500 and $2,000, and I honestly don't have that.
And I didn't hear any protest on the neighbor of the property line. It was meaning the survey was wrong or that she's over the line, except for what the overhang is gonna do with water damage, so, I think that's something we have to do.
Mr. DeSanto.
Did you say you've got the original survey?
Yeah, this is the original
we
survey
have
from
it.
my house.
Is that acceptable?
And the deck is, like I said, it's the same size of deck. Everything matches up the same. The only thing I did was rebuilt the structure, and then I'm taking the stairs to my backyard instead of my front. So that way I could take down that front fence and not have my dogs barking at my neighbors or anybody that's walking by, because it's annoying to them, it's annoying to me. It's just better my dogs go to the backyard.
Mr. DeSanto. Any follow-up?
Nope.
So it's looking to me, folks, that she's willing to go to the lattice. She'd like not to do another survey because of the cost. She has her present one. I think we have another property owner here. I think we need to listen to some of his concerns.
Okay.
Now, you just heard some of the discussion. What are your thoughts on those? I need to recognize.
My name's Richard Sheelatz. I'm the neighbor to the south. I would agree that with the lattice, I'd have no issues.
No issue? Okay,
Solve my issue of the runoff.
okay. That helps.
To assure you, Deb, I do have,
Gutters and stuff.
yes.
Well, I apologize, sir, because I didn't have
It's
time
on
to
the
run
front
out
and the
there.
back, the way that actually runs of the roof. It doesn't go on the side.
Thank you. And just a little hint, just from having a house in a basement that leaks, you're gonna wanna put some dirt and slant
Oh,
that
it's not that. It was just
corner.
the ceiling around the actual fireplace. When you get so much water, it goes above the level. And at one point before I discovered that, because it was dry when I purchased, I've since resealed. But to keep that from happening again is why I've.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. PJ, could you help us out with the motion? You've heard what's going on.
Thank you. It makes us feel so good up here when we come to an amicable solution.
Us too, we would echo that sentiment. So the staff is proposing 3 conditions. Talking with the applicant, she doesn't have any objection to adding the word lattice before the word covered to specify what type of covering over the deck. As far as the second sentence in condition 2, that would be up to the commission, whether to keep it or remove it.
So you're good with changing number 1 to lettuce and keeping number 3, but it's up to the motion maker whether to delete item 2 or leave it in.
The second sentence in item 2.
Second sentence.
Oh, let's see. Oh, I guess, yeah, 2 could go out completely. I'm sorry. You're correct, sir.
I would believe that we could accept the survey that she's provided. I wouldn't care to call some other registered professional land surveyor who did the first one wrong and make them do a new one, so.
My motion is to eliminate, number 2 and approve on the, conditions and approve the, variance
Second.
with the lattice.
Motion, sorry, I'm still reading. Motion's been made and seconded to change item number 1 to the cover was going to be lattice and to eliminate item 2, which would require
As-built survey.
new survey. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, because of legal nonconforming, she should have been able to replace or repair, and I guess probably the better word is repair that deck without a permit and without a variance, but certainly had no right to put a covered deck on there to run the water over to her neighbors. There's just no right to do that. But she had a right to repair the existing deck. Thank you.
I think we come up with something amicable. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous aye? Or did you vote no?
Wrote it down.
No,
No, okay. Unanimous aye.
you have to check his hearing.
Thank you.
Item C. Variance by Crystal Sana.
Good morning, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. Item C is variance 1808. This is a request to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 25 feet to 0 feet and to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 8 feet to construct a garage and an addition to the existing residence on this property. This property is currently zoned low-density residential district. It is down High Sega Drive. It's currently 0.16 acres. There is a portion of special flood hazard area on the subject property. Most of the eastern portion of this property is flood hazard area. The existing residence as it is constructed right now was originally built in 1958, and there was an addition constructed onto it in 1989. There was a variance issued for the construction of the addition that was done in 1989, and that was to allow that addition to be onto the front of the house within 2.5 feet of the north property line and 18 feet of the west property line in lieu of the 25 feet. That was approved in 1989. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process and nothing of significant concern came back. The applicant is proposing to construct an addition onto the residence and onto the garage. That portion in yellow that you see up there would be the proposed additions that they're wanting to make. So there are the 4 variance criteria. The first one, that specific circumstances or conditions exist on the property based on the dimensions of the lot, the location of the existing residence, and the special flood hazard area. It appears there may be conditions that could warrant approval of this variance. Number 2, that the variance does not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from this zoning district, and this variance would not do that. Item C is that due to specific circumstance or existing conditions, strict application of the zoning ordinance would be an unwarranted hardship. If they did strictly apply the zoning ordinance, it would require the applicant to meet or exceed the 25-foot setback from all of the property lines, which would require them to reconfigure the proposed additions or may prevent them from being able to make additions based on the size of the lot and the flood hazard area. And the final criteria is that granting the variance is not contrary to public interest and is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. It would allow for a reduced setback, and staff did receive 1 letter of opposition to this variance yesterday from the property owner to the south. And so if the Board of Adjustment does choose to approve this variance, staff recommends 4 conditions be included. I do believe the neighbor is here, and the Somas are here as well.
Let's hear from the owner.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Alan Haberling from All-Star Construction, representing the owner.
And you're Chris?
And I'm Crystal Soma. I'm the owner of the property.
Kind of threw you up here. Do you guys have anything to add or to your request for the variance?
Well, one of the, the main reason for the ordinance is right now the laundry facility is down on the lowest level on the creek side, which in the wintertime creates a hazard. My client and her partner both are getting up in years, so it's a safety issue when it comes to moving the laundry and getting that up there. Same thing goes as far as the garage itself. Is they're the only year-time residents, in this area. The garage would allow them to be able to pull in, park their car, get out of their vehicle, and go towards the house without, falling, slipping, and injuring themselves. Since it is in a valley in the wintertime, there's limited light that gets down in there. So any accumulations of ice and snow, they're not exposed to sunlight, so they don't melt as fast as they would if they were in open condition. So therefore, the garage would be a very nice feature for them to continue living in their home, as they age.
some of the notes that I wrote down, this is a private road. Am I correct? Okay, so that would move forward. Let me hear, is there somebody here with opposition? The other person, let me hear from them.
Questions first?
Oh, hold on. I guess Ms. Adcock has a question for you. Sorry about that.
Probably some other people, but, okay, so, flood hazard is on the eastern side of the property. Where's this garage being built? On what side of the
West
property?
side.
Okay, just
Yeah,
making sure.
the main property is above the floodplain.
Okay,
West end part of it, we're going to expand or modify the bathroom so that it would actually be more accessible, for them. And that would be in addition to the south side of the property.
Okay,
So if,
so I
as you
did-
look
yeah.
at that, you'll see an addition to the south side and an addition to the west side.
okay, and I did flip the picture around. I saw the north, but I didn't see eastern, western on this. And then I also, yesterday when I was looking at it, it's on the frontage of that property, not by the flood hazard, so, okay. That's all, just making sure that we weren't gonna build it further back so it was in the flood hazard. Thank you, sir.
Any further?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Busker. Oh, shit.
Cassie, is she here? Can you get back to yeah, that one. So the property on the right side of the porch is in the floodplain?
Yes, over where it says like Lot C, northwest quarter, that's the floodplain in this picture.
So can they build it there anyway if they meet certain?
They would have to get a floodplain development permit. They would have to get the appropriate elevation studies and things along those lines. It's possible, but if what they have right now is above the floodplain, there's a lot that goes into that, but it is possible.
Okay, thanks.
Right, yeah, it drops, I would say it drops approximately 7 feet in that distance of the edge of the house to the porch. So it's a very short drop. If there's gonna be any kind of access, they'd have to probably have to come across the backyard of the property to the north.
Thank you.
And since they're a little over 2 feet, because of that addition on, that was added, what year? 98. And that's less than 3 feet off the north property line, so however they would have to access that would have to go across, somebody else's property.
Thanks, Al. Is there any further questions? from
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
The addition, both of the main structure and of the garage, has nothing to do with increasing occupancy?
No.
Okay.
No further discussions. It looks like, I'll go to, there's another person who wants to speak. Is it Tom? I don't know, how do you pronounce your last name? So you do use the X. I don't.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're Tom and Pam Troxel. We own the lot and the cabin immediately to the south of the Soma lot and cabin. We submitted a letter yesterday opposing the requested variance, and we assume that you've had a chance to look at that. This is a tough spot for us to be in. We are very sympathetic to Chris's plight and what she's trying to do. However, we don't feel like we have any choice except to oppose the request as it's presented for two reasons. One is because the decision to grant the variance is permanent. There's no going back on that. And second, because of the effects of the proposed variance and especially the zero setback from a large garage along our common lot line, and the effects that would have on our neighborhood, the neighborhood setting, and on our use and enjoyment of our property and cabin. All that said, we are open to further discussion with Chris, and we would support continuing this item to give us a chance to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chair, I got a motion.
Or Tom, sorry.
I have a motion
Mr. Farabee.
to continue this item indefinitely.
2 weeks.
It sounds like there's a friendly amendment to 2 weeks if you want to do that.
2 weeks enough?
We're going to be gone in 2 weeks. It would need to be after the 15th of September.
Continue to the second meeting in
I would, the applicants,
Is it for the 15th?
first let's hear from the applicants. Would you please come up?
Well, I had a motion, we probably ought to have a second,
Second.
otherwise.
For
otherwise-
discussion.
Okay, there's
Second
been a
for
motion
discussion.
to continue indefinitely with a second. Now let's get to the applicant to see if that's even acceptable. We've heard 2 weeks isn't acceptable to the neighbor.
Commissioners, I've been working on this project since February with the builder. I've had it resurveyed because back in the 50s, my father always said our property line went from this tree to the bottle cap in the tree. And at that time, there wasn't that much of a pie shape to the lot from what he was telling me. I did have it resurveyed, and that's when we found the big discrepancy. We did meet with Pam Troxel, or I had a luncheon meeting with Pam Troxel in May. I did show her one of the designs that we were going to do. She did state she didn't have a problem with the garage, but she didn't want a second story added to it. She did request that we wait until September because that property that she owns is a vacation rental. And she didn't want construction interfering with the rental property. We sent out the variances, we didn't hear anything, and then on the 18th of August, they came over and said that they were going to disagree with the zero property variance. They did recommend that they had no problem of us building the garage on the north side of the property, which we own maybe 18 inches of. We'd have to buy property from the people that have Lot A. All the electrical is on the north side of the property, including the Black Hills Electric main pole. And that is just not feasible. Most of our property, what's left of it, is there on the south side, adjacent to their property. We did take pictures, and I'm sorry we didn't get them submitted, of where their property is and adjacent to ours, where the proposed construction is going to take place. You know, this indefinite postponement, I've been waiting since February. You know, this can go on forever, but we can't build on the north side. This is the only place we can build. If they don't agree to that, like Mr. Haberling said on All-Star Construction, we can pour a slab and put a portable building up there and it'd just be a big shed, which would definitely interfere with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. So, you know, I think we're at a stalemate with the neighbor right now. I don't know what we can agree with. We bent over backwards, you know, we postponed it so they can have their vacation rentals. You know, like I said, we've had the property 58. Their grandparents built that property. So, you know, we've been friends forever. And it's hard when, you know, something like this comes and interferes with it.
Thanks, Chris. Because you're not in favor of the
Your second.
postponement, correct?
I'm not in favor of the
Okay.
postponement.
Bottom line,
Can I add?
sure.
You know, what we're approaching here too is if it gets postponed too long, we're just not gonna be able to build this year.
Yeah.
So then we're gonna be into next year, and then they're going to be in the same situation next year as that they were this year. They wouldn't want them to start construction until, after the middle of September. So now all of a sudden, my clients are gonna be pushed back another year. Or if we approve the variance, or if we finally get the variance approved, we'd be building during their rental season, so.
All right, thanks, folks. Motion on the floor is to continue it was indefinitely, wasn't it?
I'll make a substitute motion
There's a substitute motion.
to continue to the second meeting in September, which would be September 24th, I believe. We're not having a meeting on Labor Day, so 24th.
Motion made to continue to the second meeting in September, which would be September 4th,
24th.
24th.
Second meeting in September.
Second meeting.
I'll second for discussion.
It's been seconded for discussion. Discussion.
24th doesn't sound right.
Second meeting in
Oh,
September.
I'm sorry, the 25th. We got we're meeting on the 4th
I thought Tuesday
and
was
the
the
18th.
2nd.
So it'd be the 18th.
18th?
18th, yeah.
The 18th.
Okay.
So, Chairman?
Hold on, you clear on that?
Oh, that's, yeah. it is.
18th. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the motion on the floor is to continue to the second meeting, September 18th. Second meeting, Ms. Hadcock.
I second, so we could have discussion. Here's where I'm going. You have a vacation home rental that's right next door to this, and people are trying to build a garage that actually live there. And that's where I think, who's really affected here? And whose property at this point has been more than justified by having a vacation home rental next to it, why they are living and not complaining about a vacation home rental. This is a garage. This is not a whole new home. This is not a whole new issue. And here's the second thing, when Miss,
Crystal.
last name Sonoma?
Crystal.
Soma said that she already had that discussion with the neighbors, and the bottom line is they believe that this is gonna affect their vacation home rental. Not their house, not where they live every day, but where, they live. So she also said she met with them. And first they said no covered porch and no this and no that, and she complied with that. And now we're saying we're gonna delay it a couple more weeks because we believe she needs to go back to them and see if she can work a solution when she's been trying to do that since February. So I agreed to the continuance, but, and will, if that's gonna get this passed, to see if they can find more solution, but, I truly would more want this to go forward at this point, just from the information that Ms. Soma has moved forward and told us. So I will agree with the continuance, even though I don't truly agree. I think this should move forward on its merits.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. I believe, so we have a motion on the floor to continue this for 2 weeks. Any further discussion from the commission?
Anybody else in the public got a comment?
I'll ask that.
Well,
Sir, Tom, go ahead and come up, you have to come up front.
To clarify your statement, I thought the motion was to go until the second meeting in September.
Second meeting in September, which is September 18th.
Right. Okay.
Yep, yeah. The first motion on the floor was indefinite, and then substitute motion is for the second meeting.
Thank you.
Discussion. My only comment is I think a continuance for till the second meeting is a good one. That gives, ma'am, you can take your pictures, and now you can submit them so we can put them into the record. Any other information, you got them. And that also gives the commission a chance to do a site visit also. So with that, the motion on the floor is to continue to the second meeting in September. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
ready for that?
Yep. Ready for next one?
Yep.
The applicant, Michael Fessler, is not able to be present today. However, he is on a conference call. Is he patched through? Joan? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Fessler, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right, this is variance request 1809. This is a request to reduce the minimum required section line setback from 58 feet to 17 feet in a low-density residential district. The applicant, as you just heard him on the phone, is Michael Fessler. As this property exists today, it is zoned low-density residential district, currently 5 acres. Access to this property is off of Lightning Ridge Road, and it currently contains a single-family residence and a detached garage. There was a variance that was approved for this property in 1987. That was a variance to allow for a house constructed within 14 feet of the south property line, which is the section line, in lieu of the required 58 feet. This variance request was routed through the interdepartmental review process. There are a couple items of note that I did want to point out. The County Highway Department stated that even though the procedure to vacate the right-of-way takes time, it is not impossible and should be done to clean this up. And then the U.S. Forest Service, in one of their comments, did say that they requested that adhere to the variance request that was approved on December 8th, 1987. No additional variance to the setback requirements along the posted boundary between National Forest System lands and private property. So what the applicant is proposing to do is he is proposing to construct an addition onto the existing residence. As you can see it in this picture, it's highlighted in yellow. He is proposing to go not more than 20 feet wide. You can see in this picture, it's got a couple proposed widths to it, but in a statement that he submitted along with this request, which should be in your guys' packets, he stated that it would not be more than the 20 feet wide. So in terms of the criteria for the variance request, staff has verified that the existing residence was originally constructed in 1984, and then there was that setback variance in 1987 that allowed them to encroach into the section line setback as they are today. The applicant has indicated that adding to the proposed residence in any other available location is significantly more costly and didn't meet the intent of the addition. This variance would not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from properties zoned low density, and strict application would require them to meet or exceed that 58-foot section line setback, which would require him to reconfigure the proposed addition or may prevent him from making the addition. As he stated, he's looked in other areas. And then granting the setback would allow for the reduced setback. And at the time of this staff report, staff has not received any letters of objection on this particular one. So if the Board of Adjustment does choose to approve this variance, staff recommends 3 conditions be included, and I do have an amendment to condition number 2 if that's the route you guys choose to take.
Any questions from the board for Cassie?
Yes, I guess,
Ms.
Chairman, sorry.
Hadcock.
So, Cassie, where's the house on the existing structures there? Where's it on the property and where's it going into this, where's the section line? Is the section line the red line at the bottom there?
Yep, this section line is this line down here, the southern property line. The house currently exists right here, and he's proposing to add on to this side.
So, basically this section line is in Forest Service. How's the topography in that area? Like if they sold the Forest Service land later, would that?
Yeah, I believe that there is some pretty steep topography in this area.
Okay, because that makes a difference, because the section line would be null and void in a sense, and building there wouldn't be an issue. If it was, the topography was good and later on they could sell that property, that wouldn't make sense to let them encroach into a section line that they might literally put in there later. So I guess that was why I asked the question. So, thank you.
Is the applicant is on the phone? Do you have anything you want to add, or is there any comments you want to make as we go through discussion?
No, sir, not really. I think everything that was noted previously is accurate. but am open for any questions if y'all should have it. Everything that's said so far is spot on.
I have one question if we have none from the commission. Highway Department states that to vacate the right of way is a lot of work. And doesn't that seem like the more proper way to go? I'm asking the applicant.
Sir, I'm not entirely sure I understand what is involved in vacating the right of way.
I'll ask Ms. Cassie.
Vacating the right-of-way would require an exhibit to be developed by a surveyor or an engineer, verifying what portion of the section line that you are wanting to vacate. The biggest thing that's involved with vacating a section line is you do have to collect, I believe it's 335 signatures currently. So you have to go through a petition process and collect 335 signatures, and then you can apply for the vacation of the section line, which then comes to the board for approval.
Okay, do you understand that, sir?
I do. What I don't understand is the implications of vacating the section line. Does that mean then that the section line and setback requirements would no longer be required?
If he were to vacate the section line, that would reduce the setback requirement that he would have, because the vacated section line would then just become his property line, essentially. The right-of-way would be vacated. So he wouldn't have to be 58 feet from that southern property line anymore. He would still have to be 25 feet from that property line, though, because of his zoning district. So it may still require him, based on what he's proposed right now, it may still require him to get a setback variance on top of vacating the section line.
And based on the most current survey, the closest encroachment of the existing structure is 23 feet from the section line. So I'm already inside that with the existing structure.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you have a comment?
Speaking of surveys.
Hold on.
Go ahead with George.
Mr. Farabee.
The December 8th, 1987 board minutes, and Cassie already read this, but in 1984, the house was built about 50 feet from the section line. And a recent Forest Service boundary resurvey relocated the section line and moved in 30 plus or minus feet closer to the house. It's about a 20 feet variance. And then some to 2016. At this time, it was determined that the home's southernmost corner was within 14 feet of the section line. That's two surveys. A third survey, what's the third survey going to show? I think we probably need to nail down where in the hell the section line is. That's a lot of variance. 20 feet the first time and nine the second time. And the larger issue is that, and Commissioner Busker can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but
I'd be glad to.
the section line right away belongs to the public. So technically, without being vacated, or I shouldn't say technically, actually without being vacated, anyone has the right to occupy that section line right away. Walking, hiking, horse, whatever. Correct?
Or a garage.
Mr. Chair.
Somebody could walk right through the house.
You finished?
Well,
I suppose that's true.
well, you can't trespass if it's public property. You can't trespass. So, yeah, you can raise all kinds of hell, but you're not if Ron's out there walking, he can walk right through the, he has a right to.
Okay,
So-
okay.
Right.
I think that's right.
Well,
Point taken, George. Mr. DeSanto, you had a comment? You're done?
I was agreeing with George.
Oh, okay.
Becomes
So currently, we have no motion on the floor. Is there anybody else from the audience that'd like to speak on this part? So that we could either move to approve or deny. We can deny it, or we could approve with the three conditions.
Be my motion.
Your motion is to approve with the three conditions.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Affect other people.
There's a second. Approval dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion on, someone wants to put on? Commissioners, need a motion either to approve or deny. Approval just denied. Was
Move
no
to,
second.
move to deny.
Is there a
He
second?
needs to
Second.
vacate that section line.
Mr. PJ.
So
There's
we
been
have
a
a
motion
second.
and a second
Okay.
to deny.
Okay, since they have to vacate the section line, I absolutely agree with you. Possibly a continuance of this variance, so the applicant doesn't have to come back and start over again.
That'd be my motion.
They'll have to re-advertise, though.
Substitute?
That'd be my substitute. Thank you.
Substitute to continue,
I'll second that.
and then substitute seconded to continue
Until after the section line vacation,
until after the section line vacation.
which we don't know when that would be, so.
Okay, that helps. Okay.
Good with that.
All in favor?
That'd
Any
be,
comments?
that'd be an indefinite postponement.
No, sir.
No. It's
Indefinite.
not. No,
No, sir.
that shuts it down.
It's not indefinite. It's based on the
Section line vacation.
section line vacation.
Correct.
So, given that. Okay. All applicant, do you understand what just happened? Michael?
I think I've got my mind wrapped around it. So understand the approval was denied, and that I need to apply to vacate the section line, and then once that gets done, then I can apply to or reapply for a variance.
I think you did very good, but I'll let PJ pass that by you once, a little bit better.
Yeah. With the vacation of the section line, since an exhibit has to be produced by a current professional, numbers could change a little bit. So if you would be approving or denying this variance today, it could be inaccurate. So the safe play is to continue this until after the vacation of section line is completed, either pro or con. The applicant would still have to re-advertise if the numbers change, but it prevents the applicant from having to start this process all over again and repay.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. And I assume I can get information on how to proceed with vacating of the section line. You mentioned there's a bunch of signatures that need to be obtained.
Yes, we can get you that information, Ms. Professor. I can call you after this meeting is over. I can call you this afternoon and we can go over that.
Okay, sounds good. And just so everybody knows, I am active duty military stationed in Washington State right now, so I'm not local. So it may take a little more time for me to put that stuff together. We are planning on moving back next summer, but just wanted to make sure if there was a timeline put on continuing or delaying the variance, that we'd be given enough time to get that run to ground before it expires.
Sounds good, Michael. So Cassie will get a hold of you.
Yes.
Before we vote,
Mr. Bobby.
do we make it part of the motion or a condition or whatever? I'd like to see another, and I hate to say it, but another survey of where that section line is.
That's one of the requirements that exhibit has to be recorded at the Register of Deeds and it has to be done by a surveyor.
Yep.
And stamped, so you'll see one.
Okay. All motion on the floor is for, please help me out. I've been so much discussion. For
Continuance
approval.
until such time that he gets the section line vacated.
Okay, that's the motion. It was seconded. Any further discussion? Did you get that,
I did.
All right, you're doing good. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to
Thanks,
come out of,
Michael.
Thank you for your service, Michael.
Thank you all very much. I think this is the right way forward, so we'll get started on it.
Thank you, Michael. Move to come out of Board of Adjustment.
We still got one more item.
I thought we were done.
Nope,
E wasn't the last one?
nope.
No, it'll be just, this one will be just as quick. Item E for Board of Adjustment is variance 1810 for Misty Fuller and Jeffrey Reed. Misty had to return to work, was unable to stay here. She left a couple hours ago, I think it was. So she's asking for a continuation of this item to September 18th, 2018 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second to continue this item. What date was that?
18th of September,
18th of September.
so that they could have representation.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now, come out of board.
The variance. E.
Oh, excuse us. By all means, I apologize.
Come back.
I really do. Commissioners, I didn't realize we had people from the neighborhood out in the audience sitting here through this long meeting to be able to make their comments. I think it's only appropriate that we take some public comment.
Do we need to rescind?
Do we, where's Jay? Jay Alderman, do we have to revisit to take comment, or?
Do we have to rescind this motion that we already voted on in order to take comment from the public?
The neighbors.
On that motion?
A different legal issue, so you're gonna have to fill me in.
What happened is we took a motion, or we made a motion and seconded to continue an item for 2 weeks for a variance, not realizing we had people in the audience that wanted to speak. And so it's been continued, but we'd like to give them a chance to speak on the item.
And the motion you talked about, you happened today?
Yeah, just
now.
So you don't have to rescind it, you can reconsider it,
Oh, okay.
because,
I
something,
made the motion, so I will,
Yeah.
do I make a motion to reconsider?
Yeah.
Yep.
Make a motion to reconsider, so, for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, motion's been made to reconsider by DeSantos, seconded by Hadcock. All in favor? This is for item E, variance VA 18-10, Misty Fuller and Dash Reed. No, it was our last one, right?
No, it's the one we just voted on.
Yeah,
D.
no, E. That's the last one we voted on.
For Michael Fessler.
No. That was the one with the military.
Misty Fuller, it's Echo.
Oh, okay.
It's 15
Gotcha.
Echo.
So all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll take some public comment. Please introduce yourself, and what might happen is, since it looks like it's going to be a continued motion, some emails or comments can also be sent in.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Susan Meyer, and I'm an attorney here in town. And I'm a 17-year resident of 13792 Clydesdale Road, which is directly across the street from the property at subject here. I've lived at that house for 17 years with my 2 children, my husband, and our many animals, including horses. This is a very, just to back up, I'm also treasurer of the Hart Ranch West Homeowners Association. The Homeowners Association did not have a chance to meet before because we only received notice of this recently. So I'm not here on behalf of the HOA, but rather on behalf of my family. As I said, we live directly across the street from this property. I do not know these homeowners. They have not introduced themselves to us, and they have not explained to us the reasons they're seeking to reduce the property size from the 10 acres that is required in our district to 4.7 to 2 lots that are 4.7 acres. So without knowing their reasoning, my family objects to this, namely because it's not in compliance with the nature of our neighborhood, which is a rural neighborhood full of, 10-plus acre lots. And that's the case for many miles coming into Rapid City. We are in the Heart Ranch West development, the majority of us, although across the street, they are not in our development, and they are not subject to our HOA. The community is a rural one, very close to Forest Service, which of course is meant for the enjoyment of everyone with open space and nature. There are many undeveloped 10-acre lots between our neighborhood and town. And we're seeing a steady growth of people building on those 10-acre lots. And as such, what we're seeing in the neighborhood is population density growing at a steady rate already within those already zoned 10-acre lots. And along with that, of course, the burden on our roads, on our water system, and on our local volunteer fire department. Without knowing the hardship that they are pleading, we can't address that yet. But we would be happy to once we knew what they had explained was their hardship. In addition, I have a letter from another neighbor who wasn't able to come, Mike Wilson, who's also an attorney in town, and his property also is very, very close to this property at subject.
Thanks, Susan. We can give it to Ms. Holly, and we'll put it in the packet.
Okay.
Along with any other comments for the follow-up.
Perfect. I think it would also be, and I will alert our water system. We're on Pine Grove community water, and I understand we have about 120, maybe a little more than that, taps. And they're obviously highly regulated, and we're very careful with our community water. So increasing the density of population out there could, in particular with the slippery slope situation, if we start dividing these lots in half, doubling the population out there could greatly impact our water system.
Okay. Susan, how often does your homeowners association meet?
Yearly.
Just yearly?
Yes.
Could you call a meeting earlier to get input?
I sure could.
Okay. Just checking.
Okay, thanks. Oh, there are two more neighbors who are here with me too.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Shane Taylor, and I'm also directly across the road from this proposed change, and I just want to make a statement. I totally oppose the approval of this too. We live in a very beautiful rural community. I know there's been neighbors in the past that have tried to do this that have not been approved. I do have big concerns, and as far as the roads, the county don't take care of the road past my house right now, Heart Ranch Road West. We're struggling right now with dollars to take care of that. Everybody has a different opinion. I'm also concerned about the Pine Grove water system. And it just seems like we're opening the door. My main objection is we have these lots in our area range from 10 to probably 20. There might even be a 40-acre lot in our area, but breaking them down to like 5 acres or especially less than 5 acres, like I said, I totally disagree with that. So I'm asking the commission not to do that. I don't know if I can be here September 18th for the next one, but I'm going to try to be. Like I said, these people haven't approached us. I know there's been new people on that side of the road move in. There's been no discussion why they want to do this or what their purpose is. But I just want to make a note here that Rochelle Taylor and Shane Taylor, my wife, we lived in our residence for 12 years out here. We take a lot of pride in where we live. And I don't want to see this area broke down into smaller lots.
Thank you, Shane.
My name is Craig Nicholson. I also live in the neighborhood. Although it's not across from my property, I'm adjacent to Shane. I've been in the area for about 20 years, and one of the main reasons we moved out there was because of the size of the lots and not have adjoining neighbors within close proximity. So my wife and I also object to the development of this until we find out more about why they're wanting to do it. As Shane mentioned, one of the neighbors was trying to split off some of his property and also was denied that, that availability of splitting off his, even though it's across the road from his main property. So we'd just like to get more information on that, and we will have to get the homeowners association recommendation as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on that item? Well, thank you. Oftentimes, this can get missed, so thank you for raising your hand and saying, hey, that helped.
So Chairman,
We do got to respect the or the applicant's request for a continuance.
Chairman, maybe they have some insight to tell the neighbors why they're here, of why they're splitting the property. Is there a family member or anything else, Cassie? Did they maybe give you an insight so they could call them and discuss?
Cassie Volstead, Assistant Planning Director again. My understanding is that they're separating it so that the daughter can have one lot and Misty Fuller will have one lot and Jeffrey will have the other lot, is my understanding of it.
And that's what I had the understanding as well, just so you guys know that, and that you can visit with her on that circumstance, what she's talking about.
Now it sparked more questions, sir.
They're looking to bill.
You know, I really do have a big concern here too, because since the property has changed hands, there's been a couple of times where the sheriff's department's been out there due to, I'm assuming, domestic violence. We do not want that in our neighborhood. Me and my wife and my little girl both witnessed that with the sheriff's department out there. We've also had several locations this summer where there was music being played extremely loud. Obviously, there's a party going on and stuff like that. And it's a huge concern of ours in regards to the sheriff's department being out there, the music, the parties that are going on and stuff like that. We do not want to have that or increase that kind of stuff in our neighborhood.
Okay. Just for the record, Shane
Taylor,
Taylor.
S-H-A-N-E,
Okay.
T-A-Y-L-O-R.
Okay, so when people watch the video back. Okay, I think we need a new motion to continue, because that was what the request was.
That'd be my motion,
Second.
September 18th, yep.
Motion is made to continue
September 18th.
to September 18th, made by Hadcock, second by DeSanto. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, folks.
Move to come out of the Board of Adjustment.
Second?
Moved and second to come out of Board of Adjustments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Who seconded that? Who seconded to come out of Board of Adjustment? I heard two people, I
Santo
wasn't
did.
sure. Santo? Okay, thank you.
Hadcock made the motion, seconded by
Okay,
by
I just needed
DeSanto.
the second.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Getting a little ahead of myself. PJ,
All right. PJ Conover, Director, Planning Department, Consent Agenda. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item F, second reading of rezone 1803 and comprehensive plan amendment 1803 for Robert Rowe, Renner Associates as the agent, and approval has been recommended. Item G, second reading of rezone 1805, Allen and Rosemary Johnson, and approval has been recommended. Item H, second reading of rezone 1804 and comprehensive plan amendment 1804 for Gary Baldwin, Fisk Land Surveying as the agent, and approval has been recommended. Item I, layout plat 1738 for Dorothy Johnson Estates, Great Western Bank, the personal representative for Dorothy Johnson Estates. It's been recommended to be continued to the November 20th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Item J, first reading and public hearing of rezone 1710 and comprehensive plan amendment 1709 for Dorothy Johnson Estates. Great Western Bank, the personal representative for Dorothy Johnson Estates, has been recommended to be continued to the November 20th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Item K, major plan unit development amendment review 1701 for Karen Moore, and has been recommended to be continued to September 18th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Item L is request for hearing of corrective action and/or abatement for nuisance serving subject property pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 341619 and 341621 for Curtis and Brianna Tyler. James Smiley is a legal representative, and it's recommended to be withdrawn, but the applicant's request, as they're correct in the action.
Okay. Thank you, BJ. Is there anybody from the audience like any items from that consent agenda pulled for discussion? Seeing none, any board members? Seeing none, look for a motion to approve the
Move to
consent.
approve consent agenda.
Then moved,
Second.
seconded to approve the consent agenda. Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Buschrood. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries by 4 commissioners.
Thank you.
1 absent.
All right. The next item, are you ready? Okay. The next item
Go ahead,
is the
Cassie, sorry.
layout plat request. This is layout plat 1821. This is a request to create lots 1 and lot 2 of tract AR of Preston subdivision. The applicants are John and Polly Preston. As this property exists today, it is zone general agriculture. It is 8.12 acres. Access is off of Murphy Road. And the lot currently contains 2 residential structures. There is a primary residence and also a caretaker's residence. As they are proposing to divide this lot, Lot 1 of Tract AR would be approximately 2 acres, and Lot 2 of Tract AR would be approximately 6 acres. Lot 2 would contain what is currently the caretaker's residence, and Lot 1 would contain the primary residence. The caretaker's residence that's on proposed Lot 2 was approved in 2016 via a conditional, or excuse me, 2017 via a conditional use permit, which was most recently reviewed in November of 2017. So the applicants, in a document that was submitted with the layout plat, indicated that the purpose for this subdivision is to put each of those existing residences on a separate lot. However, during the interdepartmental review process, the county environmental planner and the environmental planning supervisor both noted that the existing caretaker's residence utilizes a holding tank, which was approved as a temporary use. Since it appears the applicant is proposing to make the existing caretaker's cabin a full-time residence, he will be required to bring that on-site wastewater treatment system into full compliance, which means he will have to add capacity to the tank system and also add a drain field system or some other form of approved on-site wastewater treatment system. So a condition of approval has been added, which requires that. So in addition, the on-site wastewater treatment system must be in full compliance and approved by the county environmental planner prior to filing the plat with the Register of Deeds. So due to the fact that that is an issue that can be addressed as this process moves on, and this is just the layout phase of the process, staff did not find any further significant issues that would warrant stopping this subdivision at this point. So staff and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of layout plat 1821 with 9 conditions.
Thank you, Cassie. Any questions from the board?
Oh, that'd be my motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve layout plat PL 1821 with 9 conditions made by Hancock, second by DeSanto. Any discussion? Mr. Farabee?
Can't they just go out the barn and go potty? Go ahead. That's too deep.
Any further discussion?
Levity is good.
Sir, discussion. Good.
Dustin with Anderson Engineers. We're going to be doing the surveying on the property for John and Preston. I brought up to him after the last meeting that they were proposing the expansion of the sewage system and adding the tank and the drain field and stuff, and he seemed to be totally on board with that, just so you guys are aware of that.
Okay, thanks, Dustin. Yep. So the motion on the floor is for approval with the 9 conditions. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
PJ.
Okay, item N is Plan Unit Development Review 1603 for Dan and Nancy Evangelisto, Century Homes Crafters LLC, Century Land Holdings LLC, and Summer Creek Inn LLC to review a planned unit development to allow for a specialty resort development to include uses such as vacation home rentals, weddings, receptions, picnics, family reunions, single-family residence, bed and breakfast, storage, gift shop, spa, cabana, bistro, detached accessory structures, and living quarters, duplex, etc. This was approved with recommendations by the Planning Commission with 43 conditions. They changed condition 13, 14, and 24 and 27 from the staff's original, which you have in your packet. Holly is also now passing out what the board approved with changes to what the Planning Commission had recommended during your May 15th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. You changed conditions 14, 24, 27, and 43. That's what you have in your hands. And condition 43 was a continuation of plan unit development to be reviewed today, August 24th, bless you, or upon complaint or violation of application provisions of the zoning ordinance, so on and so forth. So I know the main issue here is the tent of whether temporary or permanent. In meeting with the applicant and their lawyers and also our bless you, legal representatives, I know that the applicants have some additional comments about some of the conditions that were changed in May. Unless you have any questions, I know that's pretty much all I have for you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Other than what you have received today in a memo packet for this specific item, there have been no complaints about the Evangelisto since May.
Okay. Thank you, PJ. The applicant would like to address the board about some of the changes. You want to go over them one by one? Because he went through those pretty fast before I could even write those down.
Let's go over the ones they want to
Good morning, I'm
change.
Dan Evangelisto. We had concerns with condition 14 when it was voted on. It put quiet hours on the entire PUD, not just the lots 10, 11, and 12 that specialty or the event sites on. So it was the recommendation of the Planning Commission that there was just the verbiage would be amplified sound, would have the time limits, and it would pertain to lots 10, 11, and 12 where the event site is. We just feel that quiet hours to the entire PUDs lessens the value of them. It puts undue restraints on those lots, where condition 13 already spells out the codified law, which is noise nuisance and whatnot, which covers that. So we would like condition 14 re-looked at and see if we could just clarify amplified sound on the event.
Okay, I have a question on that one because I remember we had good discussion on this. PJ, does this putting that quiet time wasn't the reason why to do go by the codified laws? Because there's other residents in that area, in that PUD that would have to be affected by that.
Well, the codified law is going to cover everybody
Okay.
regardless.
Yeah.
The neighbors that have come in before you, I don't believe any of them are included in the PUD, so they wouldn't fall under that condition. The Planning Commission recommended amplified sound be limited for lots 3, 4, 10, 11, and 12 with a time period of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily. That was the Planning Commission's recommendation. Then the board had changed that to, like Mr. Evangelisto had said, to include all the lots in the PUD. That'd be all 33, I believe. And then also quiet hours depending on the day. So Friday and Saturday were different from Sunday through Thursday. There was a lot of discussion at the last board meeting as to what to do and why. From staff's perspective, it does appear that it could put a possible burden on the homeowners to have quiet hours for all the lots. I believe also Ms. Evangelisto had mentioned that those lots are mainly residential. But if you look through the conditions, those lots could be more than residential. They could be specialty resorts, they could be B&Bs, they could be vacation homes. So putting quiet hours on all the lots could also be warranted, depending on what the use of that lot ends up being, because there are so many possibilities of what that lot could be. So
Chairman?
Just one.
I think I muddied your waters, but.
I have a question for PJ.
Ms. Hackett.
So I guess that's why I personally did that, is for that reason, because until we figure out what you're doing in your PUD exactly, because your vacation home rentals, if I'm correct, PJ, don't we have quiet hours on vacation home rentals?
We put that in there anyway.
So any of these lots, 13 through 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 28, 29, 30 through 37, and 41 could be a vacation home rental. So, and I guess at this point, until we know exactly what you're doing in the PUD, you can also take that off if it's a single-family dwelling and come in and say, okay, lot 13, 14, and 16 are going to be single-family homes. There's no justification for quiet hours in those areas. But right now, from what we've seen from previous, I would like to know what was in that area, and I think the quiet hours should stay there until you know exactly what the other lots are going to be.
Could we do a condition of amplified sound that pertains specifically to the event site, 10, 11, and 12, and maybe have verbiage of doing a minor amendment if those other lots are built out with some kind of commercial use in the future?
The only thing with that is you have 3, 4, 10, 11, and 12 are the specialty resorts, so they would be going back and forth through those areas, so the amplified sound could be in any of those lots, unless, I guess, would be affecting, I'd have to think about it, if you're asking me personally, because the amplified sound would be coming from the tent, you're right, and how it would be affecting, and would that be affecting 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, because that's part of the specialty resort. Make sense?
Commissioners, I believe from the testimony from previous meetings is the concern is after an event is over and people are leaving, there's going to be talking, there's going to be doors slamming, and that's why they wanted to specify amplified music so that there weren't calls or complaints about, people just getting in their cars and leaving after an event. Unless I was wrong about that.
Correct.
So.
Correct.
I have no problem with amplified sound.
Do we want to deal with this right here? Do you want to continue on with the rest of the stuff and have the
Continue on
discussion?
with the rest of the stuff.
Okay, so we'll come back to this stuff, but
Okay.
let's get through all.
Okay, the other condition was condition number 24, the fire safety requirements. It left it kind of open-ended to where if you read it, it really pertains to all the lots in the PUD and not specifically just the event site or the event structure. So we would just like the verbiage of that, just to kind of clarify that that condition is meant directly just for the event structure.
And staff does not disagree with that. I also checked with fire coordinator on that, and he'd be fine with specifying this is for the tent property.
I think that's appropriate.
Yep.
Okay, so then you're up to 14, 24, what other one?
The other one is what pertains to the tent, item 27. Just the last meeting, our allowable use was changed from a permanent tent to a temporary tent. To us, that's a big item, because we were always under the thought that we were allowed for a permanent tent per that condition when it was second reading, and that way for over a year and a half, and then the last meeting that got changed from a permanent tent allowable use to a temporary tent allowable use.
Okay.
This is-
Mr.
this is-
Busford.
Mr. Chairman, this is a tough question because I've never voted to give it a permanent tent. I don't know, that had to be a misprint or something, or I didn't read it correctly. I never would vote for a permanent tent, and I never will. So, I don't know.
Okay. Uh-oh.
May I
Sir.
address the commission?
Yes, sir.
Mike Wheeler, representing the Evangelistos and their entities. I'm with the law firm of Demersman, Jensen, Telling, Hughes, and Huffman here in Rapid City. And I'm coming up here at this point, I guess, to address this particular issue, in addition to a couple other items. There was an approval of the amendment to the zoning ordinance for these lots that was approved back on December 6th, 2016, second reading. And the language as set forth in that does call for a permanent tent. Now, we fast forward to May 15th of 2018 this year, and the language as set forth in the minutes has changed to a temporary tent. So the tent is up, it's been used. There haven't been any issues relative to its safety, at least not anything that's been valid. And so, I mean, I can tell you that we have appealed that decision from the commission at the May 15th meeting. We had 20 days after it was published in which to file a notice of appeal, understanding that this was set for today, too, for further review, but at the same time not wanting to miss, have somebody raise the argument that, Wheeler, you missed that deadline. We have filed that notice of appeal, and that is going to be a central issue. I think it's important for the commission to consider that this has already been approved and has been relied upon, and there's no ordinance that I've been able to find, county ordinance, no statute that would warrant denying the request for a permanent tent. And so our request is that that language be changed and that it be approved as a permanent tent. I will also note my involvement while I'm up here at the outset. I was brought in to represent the Evangelistos and their entities in connection with litigation that was commenced by a number of adjoining property owners in the area. Got sued over the alleged incorrect use of a well on Lot P. They were told that it was not being used for commercial purposes, but nonetheless commenced a lawsuit requiring the Evangelistos to expend funds to defend, and that lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed by the plaintiffs recently. So, I mean, I understand that the well issue's been brought up. The commission's been told that it's really not anything to be involved with this PUD, but it's always brought up, and so I wanted the commission to be aware that that case had actually been voluntarily dismissed by the plaintiffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Busker.
Okay, and there's a notice of appeal, commence a lawsuit. I know it's just a notice, but I'm not so sure that we should be talking about this particular issue at all.
I don't have an objection to you considering it. The nature of the appeal was, as was described by Mr. Wheeler, to preserve a right, he had to file that notice of appeal. In the decision, I believe, that was appealed was the determination that this matter would be continued to today. So it really wasn't, in some respects, it wasn't even a final decision. This is an ongoing case that we're experiencing right now at this moment.
For way too long, I might add.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to stand here and tell you that because a notice of appeal has been filed, given the unique circumstances of what was appealed, why it was appealed, and that this matter was continued to be addressed today, even before the appeal, right? Because
That's correct.
It was part of the decision, and the appeal had 20 days to be filed, so
Yeah,
I think you can address this matter today as you intended to.
Mr. Chair, I need a refresher.
Mr. Farabee.
Appeal from what to where, to whom, for what?
Appeal from this commission's decision to the Circuit Court, 7th Judicial Circuit.
That's a 20-dayer?
Yeah, 20 days after.
If I could make a comment.
Appeal, our decision was, what was appealed from our decision?
It was the change of the language from a permanent tent to a temporary tent.
At our last meeting, when we finally got through, for just a little backup, all the discussions, all the public comments that we had, one of the things that got it through the approval to get to this date was to put in there as language as temporary tent, because that was something we were all stuck on. And so in response to that, Mr. Wheeler filed an appeal.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeSanto.
almost a year ago, can't remember what month it was in, we had this discussion and we had instructed the evangelistos that we were going to allow them to keep the tent up over the winter and see what kind of, how it weathered the winter. We had a pretty heavy winter, a lot of snow. What our concern was whether or not the tent was going to hold up, if it was going to tear, fall in, cave in, that, so forth and so on. It weathered the winter fine. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, PJ, but the planning commission meeting determined that after we looked at how the tent fared for almost a year, that we decided it should be permanent. Is that correct? In the planning commission, planning and zoning meeting?
The planning commission recommended that it be a permanent tent.
Correct. Based on the fact that it had weathered what we required of the evangelistos 8 months ago, 9 months ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So I still feel that it should be considered. I think it would put undue stress upon their business to have to take down, put up, take down, put up that type of tent. That tent is designed to be permanent.
Okay.
Chairman,
I need to.
if I could.
While he's up there, can I refresh? You said December or
Mr. Farabee.
26.
Ms. Hadcock, you okay with waiting?
Yep.
2016.
Mr. Farabee.
Hold on, Mr. Farabee. So number one, I didn't approve the tent because, of wind. I said, and I didn't approve the tent, what I said was, same thing. Let it sit up there, see how it weathers, see what the issues are with the tent. And then come back and make a determination, which is common sense, because there's people in the area, there's wind, there's all kinds of things, and because they, like, number one, the kitchen and the bathrooms weren't permanent, and they had to come in and they had to ask if they could be permanent. Am I correct? PJ, didn't they have to come and get a variance or get a building permit for the kitchen and the bathroom?
They did get
Not a
building
variance,
permits
a
for the kitchen
permit.
and but they didn't need
So,
it. And
did
that
they-
was routine. They could have done that without coming to the planning commission or the board at all.
Did they get a building permit for the permanent tent that we thought we were gonna be permanent?
No, they have temporary building permit for that right now.
So they were still in a temporary building permit and not being permanent until we issued a building permit and said that we wanted to be permanent. So there was no determination on permanent at all, because it's supposedly a permanent tent, in their eyes, was not in ours. By that determination is because there was no building permit. And if we don't issue a building permit, or PJ doesn't issue a building permit, it doesn't become permanent till then. So your determination, because the planning commission decided to do that, Mr. Wheeler, and put that towards us and see what we thought from the past, I can understand why you think that. But again, in the county, we usually have a building permit to make something permanent. And we have not, as a commission, decided that it would be permanent at that time until then.
Can I comment, please?
Who wants to, which one do you want to respond?
If I could just interject real quick. At the time that we were told to get a temporary building permit, we were under the impression that county did not know how to issue what type of permit. And in the past, they've always issued a temporary building permit for tents, so that's why we got a temporary building permit. And we were always under the impression that it was to be left up for a year. We almost met that. A little bit earlier, we had that review. And it was always our understanding that it was going to be allowed to be permanent, but we just didn't know how to permit it. That was always our understanding. And prior to the last commission meeting, we met with Commissioner Hadcock on site with Jerome, the fire coordinator, and I can't remember if PJ was there, but we also told them that we would be acceptable to building permanent walls for the regular 2x-framed walls with sided and insulated and interior finishes around the perimeter of the entire event site to try and lessen the noise, try to make it look more of a regular structure. And I thought you were in favor of that. PJ has been in favor of that, and Jerome was in favor of that, to allow it to be a permanent structure.
At that meeting also, you agreed to all the things that were on here, and now you've came back and changed them. You can say that, ma'am, but when we said that, you came up. So based on the determination, I was there to listen and not to make a determination at that point because I was one of five.
Okay.
So I appreciate you guys coming out there, but we did discuss all of these, and at that time, I thought we had settled them, and we had came back, and that's why we have what we have on 14 and all the rest except for the tent. I thought we were in agreement, and now we're coming back, we're not in agreement, and this seems to be a continual process. Once we agree with something, they come back and say, okay, no, we didn't mean that, we meant this. So this whole thing for me is every time we think we have a determination, we come back and we say, except for the tent, I'll agree with you, except for the tent, there seems to be another disagreement with what we said. And it's been continuing to do this through the planning department and this commission. Once we determine something, the evangelistos come back and say, no, that's not what we meant. What we meant is this.
Okay,
So that's been proven by all the stipulations and all the things that have happened on this issue.
let's get back through what we need to talk about. There was, what other items?
Those are the only three.
Let me follow up. Mr. Wheeler had a comment before you jumped in, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Crowe. I was just going to clarify, Commissioner Hadcock had kind of detailed some of the history and what I, had relied upon, or what we had relied upon in thinking that there was a permanent tent as opposed to a temporary structure. And I would just remind the commission that there was a second reading ordinance PUD 1603 on December 6, 2016. Motion passed 4-1. And so if I'm in the community and I want to look and see what the ordinance change, what it is, and how it's zoned and what the uses can be, then I can look at that. And it expressly says in there, permanent tent. Now, there's a process for people to appeal that to the circuit court. There's a referendum process. It's an ordinance change. It required 2 readings and a publication. It says permanent tent. May 15th, it gets changed to temporary tent. So I'm pointing that out, that history as well, for the commission's consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Now, do you have any other items?
No, sir.
Just, so I'm getting it's 27, 24 and 14 that you had questions about. Okay. I think we have some other people that would like to speak. So let's give them a chance, and then we'll go back to the commission. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak on this?
Probably. I'd like to see that.
Okay, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Peggy Bowser.
Okay, folks, we got somebody up here speaking.
We are owners of property up there at Custer Trail subdivision. And as far as the matter of the tent is concerned, we are opposed to it being a permanent tent. And I just reiterate that because we've expressed that many times in the past. We were at a meeting yesterday with the Evangelistos and their attorney, and they say they're not developers, but they're builders. And it's my feeling that if they were to build a building that looked appropriate, looked kind of like their bed and breakfast, that would be acceptable. But the white fabric tent, I'm opposed to.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Morning, Commissioners. It's been a long meeting. Peggy Gibson from Huron. Dale, my husband Dale, and I are owners of Lot P. And yes, we did sue the Evangelistos for commercial use of the well on our Lot P. However, one of the reasons that we did that is our attorney, who is on the State Water Board, said that the Evangelistos appeared before the State Water Board and asked them to approve a commercial permit for the water coming from Lot P. There is a well agreement on Lot P that strictly says that lot is to be used for residential use only. So he advised us to pursue a lawsuit and get some clarification on exactly whether or not that water was being used for commercial reasons or residential reasons. And because they applied to the state of South Dakota for a commercial permit, we assumed that they were going to be using that water for commercial purposes. And I think anybody would assume that that's what their intent was. However, we cannot prove that they're using the water for commercial purposes at this time, but moving forward, we want you to be cognizant of the fact that if they do have commercial uses on any of their lots, that you make sure that water is not coming from Lot P for any commercial purposes. It can be used for residential purposes. And once again, just to review with you, the Evangelistos did not, as good neighbors, tell Dale and I that they were coming on the property and drilling a new well in 2005. There was an existing well that was adequate, and the families that were residential users of that lot were using the water, and it was perfectly adequate. The reason that they had to shut the well down in 2009, the existing well, and the reason they did that is because they chose to build their bed and breakfast at the location that they did, and their drain field is too close to a shallow well. And what that did is cause the current users across Taylor Ranch Road, and that would be Barbara Madison, Don Behrens and Peggy Bowser, and Danelle and Robbie Clausen, to use the water from the new well that the Evangelistos drilled, making them the water lords and beholden to them for whatever price they want to charge for that water. When in fact, the existing well, which was a shallow well, was perfectly adequate according to that well agreement, and they did not need to drill a new well, causing all the neighbors to pay them for drilling that well and using that water. Thank you, members of the commission. Thank you for your service. I understand you have to hear a lot of complaints, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you, Peggy. Is there?
Good afternoon, board. My name is Don Behrens. My concern is you have a commercial development in a residential neighborhood. That's where most of the friction's at, and it continues to develop forward. In the meeting we had yesterday with the Evangelistos and their attorney, our understanding was they were going to give us some clue as to what direction they're moving forward. That was not there was nothing discussed. It was just a question session for us and what we were looking for. You know, we're trying to work with these people as best we can, but you're taking over a residential neighborhood with a commercial development, and that's where a lot of the problem is. And I guess my concern, if I was on the board, I look at this issue and I think if you approve this and allow this development to have a tent, what doors are we opening for future developments? So what's to say that another development in the Black Hills, someone comes in and does the same thing in a residential neighborhood and they put up a tent and they're moving forward? I just guess I would look at that, because what doors are we opening to the future? And, you know, is this the right move or the wrong move, or how do you regulate that so that you guys don't have to go through this again down the road with someone else? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Don. PJ, oh, no, we got one more.
My name is William Newcomb, and I have the lot that's on the east side of Summer Creek Inn. And I just want to reiterate everything that everybody else has said on this. And one of the big issues, all the neighbors in the neighborhood seem to get along just fine. We help each other out. We enjoy each other's company. And it seems like anything that the evangelistas want to do doesn't benefit the environment around. It doesn't seem to help any of us that live there in any way, shape, or form. Everything they do is basically for their benefit. And, you know, we like to keep the environment the way it is. We like to keep the openness and everything just the way it is. We enjoy that. That's why we moved there. If we didn't like it, we'd be living in the city. And that's about all I have to say.
Thanks, William.
Okay, thank you.
Folks, this is my suggestion. I'm going to ask Mr. PJ the possibility of a continuance of this. And the reason why I say this has been a long meeting. I'd hate to have any rash decisions made on a commission that's been going for about 6 hours now. I don't think we make good decisions when we get to that point, and I would like to see probably a little more, I don't want to say research, but probably something to bring us back up to speed a little more on the item, because it's been off the agenda for quite a while, and getting back up to speed after 3 days of having the agenda, I don't think is enough personally. But I'm asking PJ and the applicants, and the commission, if that's something they'd be wanting to do.
Staff doesn't have any objections. I think the main thing that needs to be addressed then is the tent. Technically, the temporary building permit expired on August 8th of this year. But with the continuation in May from this board to August 21st, you extended that building permit. So today it would expire. So if you were to continue it, you'd have to address what you'd like to do with the tent as it exists today.
First, let me see if that's something the applicants and people who are present.
Nancy Evangelisto. One of my questions and concerns about this extending of it is we are booking events. This week alone, I have 5 different groups wanting to do holiday parties, and I've been putting them off on making a decision on whether to take that contract until a decision's been made with this board. So I need to know how long you want to continue this for.
I'm just pulling out the calendar when you
Yeah.
start talking.
Yeah, when she's talking dates. Are they coming up, or are they further in the future?
I have events right now scheduled for, I don't have my calendar, so you're kind of catching me here. I believe the 1st, the 8th of September, off the top of my head. I mean, there's several dates. The 6th of October, I believe I have another one on the 16th of October, and then the December ones, I haven't closed. There's
Yeah,
several different.
I'm
also
So you're
trying,
saying no?
no, I'm just asking how far, and if you're
Okay.
going to extend this,
I
my
would s-
license is expired.
Yeah, I would
You're putting me in
suggest-
a situation where I don't have the ability to operate my business. We're booking weddings right now for 2000.
My suggestions for September, the first meeting in September, which would be the 4th.
Basically 2 weeks from now, so September 4th, day after Labor Day.
Yeah. That would, just a second, let's get this.
I guess I don't see any reason to continue, and why you're making dates for the rest of us.
No, my
when
question was.
We
to
had an
ask-
expiration date, August 8th, and I think it needs to be addressed instead of continued, Lloyd. And you keep, to me, you're pushing this down the road when I think you should hear from the board first. Even though
I
that's your
asked-
solution,
I asked a suggestion.
you.
And explained why.
actually, you're pushing it towards a solution in, I believe,
So you-
with an
Ms.
expiration.
Hadcock, you're against it. Okay, we got that. Anybody else from the board? Mr. Farabee?
For.
You're for what, the continuance? We need a motion if we're gonna do that.
Before we go there, can you back up to that one chart? That way it had the lots on there. If I need a little refresher.
One with the numbers?
Yeah. Now, those were platted way back, what, 50 years ago?
At least.
So 50 years ago, and the X's are what?
The properties that are not in the PUD.
Okay. They were part of the plat, though.
Correct.
And what size is the average lot?
Oh, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
I'd like to know that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Do you have a quarter acre to half acre? Some of them are a little bigger, maybe?
Yeah,
or
the
smaller?
smallest is, I think, is like a third acre, and the largest one is 0.88 acres.
I'm gonna go through the PUD, see if we have it in there. I don't, or the PowerPoint. I don't think we have a copy of it.
See the,
Chairman, I guess my
Just a
bottom
second,
line.
he's in the middle of asking a question and getting some clarification.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Thank you.
But you have expired.
He is
Permit.
in the middle of, yes.
You're trying to
please.
find solution with something that's
No,
expired.
he's asking a question.
So we were handed this at, okay, I can give this to Commissioner Farabee to look at?
well, just tell me, what's the average size lot?
I can address
Well, they're 0.33, 0.4, 0.36, 32, 37, 0.88, 0.5, 64, 25, 0.16, 0.53. So between probably between a eighth and a little over 3/4 of an acre.
Sounds like about half or thereabouts, or under 4/10 of an acre.
No, it's okay, we have them though. I'm sorry.
About half of them are under 4/10 of an acre. And the significance of 4/10 is when the rules, septic rules were passed in 1975, you had to have an acre unless you had centralized water or centralized sewer. I get centralized water, but if you only have one of them, then you have to have 4/10 of an acre. And that needs to factor into the planning, future planning of this thing. That's where I'm going. Thank you.
So right now, there is no motion on the floor.
May I speak, Chairman?
Ms. Hadcock.
Why I'm saying that, Lloyd, is we haven't expired. We told them August 8th. Expired. We were going to make a decision. And now they have events on September 1st, October 6th. So they've already moved forward. And we just said that August 8th, the tent was expired. So what I'm saying is, are we letting them have it to permanent today so they can move forward until or temporary until we decide on the 18th or the 1st or whenever we have our next meeting? Because today, there needs to be a decision on an expired temporary permit.
Okay.
So we can continue it, but I think it's disingenuous to the neighbors and disingenuous to the evangelistas at this point.
Well, PJ had made the comment, the continuing, it does close, but it would continue on, it'd be within the working operations.
Which is
Till the next
disingenuous.
meeting.
Which is disingenuous to what's
It's a
moving
matter
forward.
of opinion, it's just
No, it's true.
a question.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll move to postpone till next meeting.
There's the motion on the floor.
Second for discussion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there's motion to propose to the next meeting in second. Now I can go to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to clarify that the events that I talked about were already in play and had contracts prior to this being put in limbo. I have put contracts on hold. I have not signed certain contracts until. So I didn't want this commission thinking that we're out taking contracts when, in fact, it's put our business, we haven't taken a lot of contracts.
Clarification made.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
This motion does provide for them to continue to use the tent, correct?
If you specify that it would.
Then I would make a substitute motion to continue it to the first meeting of September and allow them to continue operating to that date.
Or is that a friendly amendment? Who made the motion?
George.
George.
Second.
Okay, you're just gonna second. So the motion's made and seconded to continue to the next meeting, and they can operate as is to that meeting. Further discussion.
Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock.
there'd be objection because all we're doing is kicking the can down the road. And that's not doing anybody any good. So if we rule with them, we're good. If we rule against them on their tent, we're going to court. So I believe in the end, you're kicking the can down the road, which is disingenuous to both sides. So I'll just say, bottom line, I think their solution with all of them, all the other stipulations, unless they change them again, and 13, 14, I forgot the numbers, 13, 14, 24, and so the only thing we're really dealing with today is the tent. So do we want to keep it up temporary, or do you want to make it permanent? Because they're trying to run a business in one sense. They're trying to figure out if they're gonna have a permanent tent the rest of their days up there. And what are we gonna have for different information on the first than we don't have today? That's why I'm trying to say, I think there's a decision that needs to be made, and they move forward one way or another. I don't think the first is gonna make any difference.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock, and I respectfully disagree that we're trying to kick the can down the road. When I was asking the question, it's very obvious this has been contentious meeting. And when that happens, people don't make good decisions. That's why I suggested it. It's not to try and kick it down the road, change people's minds, anything else. I want a commission that's refreshed, who studied refreshed their stuff and go over this. So I don't agree with the comments of being disingenuous at all. So,
Mr. Chair, that's why I made the motion.
okay, so we have a motion for continuation, discussion on the continuation. Mike, did you have something?
Thank you, Commissioner LaCroix. Just to briefly, just remind the commission that, looking for reasons to continue, provide additional information. The evangelistos have also offered to make some modifications with regards to the tent, specifically to put up the walls. So I would remind the commission of that as well.
Okay, thank you. So the motion on the floor is to continue to the September 4th meeting and continue the temporary permit to the same, is that worded about right? Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries with 2 noes from Ms. Hadcock and Busker.
Thank you.
Like pulling teeth. Down the road. I think I'm going to see if I can get a dentist appointment for the next time. It's much easier.
Okay, folks, we already did item 11, which was the bids. Next on the agenda item is
Proposed resolution.
items from Chair and Commission's 2018 proposed resolutions of policy and statement changes from South Dakota Association of County Commissioners.
Make that one real quick.
Okay, Mr. Busker.
You've got in front of you some policy changes that want to be made. They're really nothing very crucial or important. I think we should read through those and discuss them sometime. Anyway, I've read them and for the next meeting, I guess. It'll be at the county convention. I don't know when that is.
The 10th and 11th, if I remember right.
Yeah, September 11th. So we got next meeting to
We can
go
do
over
it?
'em. Yeah.
Okay.
When we're all refreshed.
Because we can't make a decision unless we're refreshed.
All right, that's enough. We don't need these side comments,
You'll be
Ms.
okay, Lloyd.
Hadcock. I mean it.
I know. So do I.
Jeez.
Yep.
Okay, committee reports. The only thing I want to remind, Ms. Hadcock, you have some committee reports you wanted to, well, start from left to right.
Thank you. Lloyd, so the fairgrounds is doing an amazing job. They always do. But this year, the events and the things that been happening on the fairgrounds have been bigger than they've ever been. I've witnessed some of the horse shows, some of the fair events like the concerts and different things just to get a refresher. But I also am working behind the scenes and seeing how they set up the events, who does those, how they do them. And it's pretty amazing how many volunteers we have at the fairgrounds and how much money they save by doing that. There's a lot of people that just in Rapid City and otherwise surrounding area that get really excited about the fair and volunteering at the fair and all the events that they have. And this year has been no exception. And I can tell you firsthand by witnessing some of those behind the scenes and the volunteers and the people that have been working on the fair this year, it's pretty amazing. And just think about the sales tax and the different things that we do for the surrounding area in Rapid City by what we're doing at that fairgrounds. It's pretty amazing. So if you have a chance, and I don't know if the board has been, I know Lloyd has with his wife. I was visiting with them the other day at the Derby, and we were just amazed at how many people were there.
Yeah.
So it's doing well. And then the chamber, again, is moving forward on some of their ag events and some of the things they're doing. The city is recognizing a lot more of the ag things and how we contribute to the city, which I appreciate a whole lot. When the mayor and the president of the council, they did a resolution basically recognizing what the county does for them and what we do for the surrounding areas and for them at our grand opening. I thought that was pretty awesome. So we're working together well as a team with the city and the surrounding areas, and I think it only will be a positive moving forward.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Mark, did you have any?
Executive Policy Committee meeting that I went to, where they basically did a report on all the road projects that are going on around in Rapid City and Pennington County. And I guess the main one of note would be the quiet zones, that they're doing a quiet zone study. We approved the quiet zone study for the railroad. All of that, the cost of the quiet zone, if we change to different types of warning systems, that cost is all going to be carried by the city and the county. If they're outside of city limits, obviously, then the county's going to carry them. So that's something to be aware of, that those are coming up in the future, because they're doing this quiet zone study, and they want to try and keep it so the trains aren't blowing their horn in the middle of town where there's a bunch of residences.
Thanks, Mark. The only thing I'd want to bring up to the Board of Commissioners is I'd received a complaint, or I shouldn't say a complaint, a concern on the animal keeping committee. And so I'm looking for a little bit of clarification on, one of the members had become a county commissioner, or not county commissioner, geez, planning commission, who was not prior. And so in the spirit of transparency, the chairman had brought this concern to me as chairman of the commission, to ask whether we thought that was inappropriate, if there's too much information, that type of stuff. And it was brought to, I believe, Assistant State's Attorney for some clarification. I guess I'm just looking at some guidance. I had a good conversation with the chairman of the committee again for the second time the other day. He says there's been no problems. It's been, the committee's been rolling along pretty good. There's never been a tight vote one way or the other. So my feeling is I think it's good to have a planning commissioner, and I think he's a voting member, I should say that. I don't think there's a problem with it, but maybe we should put this on our next agenda for next third to discuss whether that's the way it is, or it's okay to have a voting member on there or not. I guess I'm looking for a little insight from you, Mark, because you've been on the committee.
I am not a voting member.
No.
That's just there to observe. But I don't see an issue with it. In my opinion, I don't see an issue with it. Although I do lean towards the committees not having someone from the Board of Commissioners or the Planning and Zoning as a voting member. I lean that direction. But with this animal keeping committee, it's a complicated issue, more complicated than anybody can even imagine. And so I think maybe the more input they get, the better.
Yeah, I totally agree. PJ thought he was done, and when I throw this out on the floor, so I guess I'm just looking for whether I should put it on. We're talking about the animal keeping committee.
I know, I was in the conference room and heard it and then
Okay.
quickly ran over here. One thing the commission probably does not know, well, unless, you know, the email was sent out while you were here. The committee approved a draft ordinance yesterday to go before the planning commission.
Oh.
However, the vote passed 4-2. There's 9 voting members on the committee. So so they didn't get that majority. We assumed it was passed at that time, but talking with State's Attorneys Angela, we felt it was safer to have them meet one more time and to vote so we can get at least the majority vote of 5 or more
And that
to
is,
pass it. So they are essentially done, but there was a motion to pass it, which passed 4-2, and a motion to do away with all of 204G, existing and future 204G, which failed 2-4. So we're just going to have the committee back together again.
There's 9 voting members.
9 voting members, but the committee has probably, at any one time, it could be upwards of 15 people sitting there. You, me, other staff, yeah. And also Travis, he only votes in the event of a tie. He doesn't count. So there's 10, yeah, okay, and then 9, yeah.
So Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock,
said one thing, so it'd be him, Travis, and Jim on that board. Travis is not a voting member. So Jim, just take him as a non-voting member at this time now that he's on the planning commission. It seems like common sense on it. And then move forward because you still have enough voting members. Does that make sense? Since you already have one planning commission that's non-voting, I would say once you got elected, you'd be non-voting, and that would be common sense that you have enough voting members and move forward as such.
so your suggestion is that he should be non-voting, turn to non-voting?
Just like the other planning commissioner, once he got elected, he should be non-voting.
But the other planning commissioner is a voting member if there is a tie. So then we're in the same.
The chairman is?
Travis is.
Yeah, Travis was appointed.
Voting member if there's a tie.
He offered, and then the board appointed him as the chair.
So first of all, you said he wasn't voting, and now he's voting if there's a tie.
He's voting only in the event of a tie. But there's 9 voting members on everything, unless there's a tie, then Travis.
We've had members of not only the commission, but council on some of these and it helps. I think it helps out the committee and the board if they have questions when it comes forward. I mean, that's my thoughts on it. I think it's a good thing to have one, but
I wanted to let you know they're very close to being done.
I think what I'll do is now that it's on fresh in everybody's mind, I'll just put it on our next agenda.
Yeah, good idea.
They're done.
Get through this.
Worry about it next time.
Yep.
Okay, so would you like their upcoming meeting to be held after
Yeah.
your next board?
Heck no, get after it. I think the last meeting, they agreed that he'd be he wasn't gonna vote. if I
And
remember.
he did too. He was okay with that, just.
Okay, so I think he could do the same.
Okay. All right, we should have a report for you for at next meeting.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I had, folks. Anybody else?
I don't know if did I tell you last time about my board of directors meeting in Pierre?
No.
I went to the board of directors for the association. Brought back some material that is, who cares? But the major thing I talked about was, I told them about our lawsuit and our appeal of the judge's decision. And they were all very interested. They were all gonna take it back. Holly was gracious enough to send the decision to Bob, who was gonna send it to all the counties. And anybody that was there was going to make sure their state's attorneys were well aware of it and probably file an amicus brief because they think they've all been doing it the same way. Especially Minnehaha, they said, "Oh, just a second." So time will tell, but we're going to get some help from the association and from the other counties.
Okay, thanks, Ron. George, you have anything?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the vouchers.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Been moved by Buskerud. I'll seconded by LaCroy to approve the vouchers of $2,815,425.42. Any discussion?
Because we don't have adequate oversight, I'll keep voting no.
Okay.
You're right.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
1 no for Mr. Farabee. Motion passes. Any items from the public?
On YouTube.
Seeing none, I think I'll recognize Mr. Buskerud.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mark Schock as the temporary interim highway superintendent, grade 25, step 8, effective July 4th, 2018, through the end of the pay period in which the new superintendent is hired.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
And I assume that we will be starting that process, or if we haven't already?
Posted, yeah, so 2 weeks ago, the position was posted. It's on, actually on your commissioner's website, it's on the state of South Dakota website, Department of Labor. Through NeoGov, it actually gets posted all across the country and all government websites.
Okay, thanks, John.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
My only comment is that I'd like to applaud Mark for taking the reins on this and sticking with it, and he seems to be doing a great job, so.
Yep.
I'll second that. All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Agag, seconded by DeSanto to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
Motion carries unanimously.
I'm sure.